Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I call the regular meeting of the Menifee City Council to order. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Councilmember August. Councilmember Leesmeyer.
Here.
Councilmember Edgerton. Yes. Mayor Pro Tem Denver. Here. Mayor Mann.
Here.
Thank you.
And for words of inspiration this evening, we have Pastor Troy Omer from the First Baptist Church.
Let's pray at this time. Lord, as I come into your presence once again through prayer, I lift up the city council members that are serving our community. I thank you for those that work behind the scenes, the different services that provide service to the community as well. Pray for your hand of protection, strength, and guidance as they do their jobs diligently. Thank you again, once again, for your grace in our lives and your hand of protection. I pray for wisdom during this meeting and discernment as people share their feelings in their heart. Give the council members wisdom as they listen. And Lord, just bless this time. May it be honor and glory to you, and all that's said and done. We pray this in your son's name. Amen.
Thank you very much, sir. Councilmember Leesmeyer, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
Certainly. Please join me. Right hand over your heart. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we have presentations tonight. If you would join me up front to honor the Miss Menifee Court for the upcoming year. Okay, there we go. So we're going to do this like we've done before. We're going to recognize the outgoing court that are here. Good evening. And we're going to recognize the incoming court by name and give them a pin, and then we'll all have a nice evening. Okay? So I'm going to read one certificate, and then we'll present to everybody. This is a City of Menifee Certificate of Appreciation. This certificate is awarded to each one of these beautiful young ladies. Thank you very much for your service on the Menifee 2014 court, outgoing, effective this date, May 20th, 2015. Miss Jasmine Ruiz. Junior Miss City of Menifee, Randy Ornelas. Miss Preteen Miss City of Menifee, Elise Williams. And Junior Teen Miss City of Menifee, Brittany Colindres. And Teen Miss City of Menifee, Kaylee Miller. She is officially taller than me. And Miss City of Menifee, Isabel Donadio. I think I've had the most pictures with her this year than anybody else at every single presentation throughout the city through the whole year, so that was really good. And for those who are not here, able to join us this evening, Samantha McCoy, they'll be recognized later, Christine Picola, and Karina Sakona. So a round of applause for the outgoing court of And would you like one more picture? All right, Ms. Bowen, would you like to announce the new incoming or say a few words?
Thank you, Mayor Mann and our City Council. As he mentioned, these young ladies are finishing their year, and this group of young ladies over here are just starting their year. So our new 2015 Miss City of Menifee is Haley, and our young Miss City of Menifee is Lily. Our junior teen is Maylon. Our preteen is Ariana. And our children's court is our junior, Miss City of Menifee, Riley. And we have our pixie, who is Ashlyn. And our little miss is Bridget. So you'll be seeing them out in the community in 2015. Thank you so much.
Thank you for everything that you do to give an opportunity for these young ladies to excel both in the pageantry area and public speak and get out there and show what Menifee's all about. So thank you very much.
And we will give these gifts to the girls.
Excellent. Thank you, ladies. Congratulations. Thank you all very much for coming. Thank you for everything that you do. And on to approval of the meeting minutes from the May 6th meeting. Are there any modifications to that meeting? Hearing none, those minutes are approved. Madam Clerk, are there any modifications to tonight's agenda?
Yes, sir. On item 7, agenda approval, I would like to let you know that your PEG ordinance will be coming back to you on the 3rd for your second reading. It didn't make it on this agenda. It will come back on the 3rd. Just wanted to note that for the minutes.
Very well. Thank you very kindly. Are there any other modifications?
No, sir. Otherwise approved as posted.
Thank you. On to public comments. Madam Clerk, would you please call the first public speaker?
Yes, and Your Honor, I did let them know that this is not an agendized item tonight, so they're welcome to speak, but the council will be doing more than a mild address of it after. First speaker, Marianne Kurzmakers. Oh, good.
For the speakers who are coming to the podium, please, for the benefit of Councilmember Edgerton, bring the mic to your, right up to your mouth and speak clearly if you could, please. Thank you.
My name is Marianne Kearsmakers, and I live on Windsor Drive, which is just 2 blocks away from the church on Sun City Boulevard and McCall. And I'm just here to report some of the homeless activities that have been breaking into our home. And police reports would even reflect the fact that they are being tracked back to the church and their residents there at the address of 26510 Jamestown, which is across the street from me. That home was broken into on 129. They did find the people, and they are occupants. Spending the night there, I guess they can have up to 6 people. The people at 28126 are in the audience also, and they didn't get their slip turned in on time, and they're on Windsor Drive, and they also had their cars broken into. Her purse was stolen. They were tracked back to the same people that broke in on Jamestown. And then one of my tenants at 28118 Windsor Drive, that house was also broken into. We are just one street away from these people that walk up and down our street, canvassing the neighborhoods, finding out when we're home, when we're not, and coming back and breaking in. I am not for the homeless shelter being built or people even spending the night over at the church, because this is what's happening in our neighborhoods. It's not safe. If this church wants to do something for the people, then help the seniors. We need food brought in. We have seniors that could use a ride to a doctor's appointment. I mean, if he's wanting really and truly to do God's work, there's enough people here in Menifee that need the help. It's certainly not bringing in the homeless. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, ladies and gentlemen, there's a lot of folks here tonight, and we're not going to clap for the speakers this evening, okay? We understand it's a passionate issue. Please come up and be courteous to every speaker, pro or con, whatever they may be speaking on. Please observe the decorum policy and keep the clapping to a minimum. Next speaker, please.
Tom Thurman.
Good evening. My name is Tom Thurman. I live in Sun City, a community of Menifee. I'm not here in any official capacity, just as a person concerned with the announced plans of the United Christian Church to establish a homeless shelter in the middle of one of the largest senior communities in Riverside County and the largest senior HOA in Menifee. My wife and I have received numerous emails and phone calls about this homeless shelter, and not one has been in support of this action. The church is located across the street from the shopping center, patronized by the oldest, sickest, and most frail members of our population. Many of the people who occupy these homes surrounding the church no longer drive and must live there to be near shops, pharmacies, and banks. Many who stay at the homeless shelter are attracted to these very people, as they are easily intimidated and often give a panhandler what they want. There's already an issue with homeless and panhandlers hanging out at the Sun City Shopping Center, and establishing a shelter will only attract more. Build it and they will come applies here as well as with businesses. I'm encouraging the city management and the city council to start a dialogue concerning this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Red Sullivan.
Good evening, Council. I'm here to speak on the homeless issue as well. As all of you know, I'm the president and director of The Concern, where we service approximately 2,600 people a week. So we do over 30,000. This is a big concern for the Cherry Hill Shopping Center. I don't know how many of you are down there, but we've got a number of them which are probably schizophrenic and paranoid as well, are schizophrenic paranoid. They scare the seniors. We have them where they won't go into bingo. They won't get out of their cars and go into bingo because these people are there. I have had to go out and ask several of them to please leave, and they are nasty, they are rude. They tell me this is a free country. They can do what they want. As most of you know, we give out free meals. We give out meals to the seniors that are homebound at Christmas, Thanksgiving, and Easter. This year we had the homeless come up and demand dinners from us because they didn't have a home and they didn't see why the seniors should get anything. This is a big problem for the shopping center. And behind the building in the back where they have an employee's parking lot, that's where they use as their public restroom. And I can tell you, when it's 110 and you get out of your car, it doesn't smell very good there. It doesn't smell like old man Tucker's farm. It's really bad. And so that's a health issue as well. And some of these homeless actually have HIV, so now they're urinating and defecating all around where the seniors could possibly get into it. This is not a good place to put a homeless shelter. Our seniors need to be protected. I spend my time making sure they're protected and safe and they stay healthy. This is not safe, healthy, or something that the seniors should be exposed to. I don't even want to be exposed to it, and I don't live in that area, but I work there every day. So I encourage you to please not consider this as a place to put a homeless. I realize they need shelters, they need places, but let's find some place where they can be taken care of psychiatrically, medically, etc. This is not the place to put it. I sent all of you an email giving you some of my other concerns. The home, I can tell you in the Cherry Hills Plaza, Mr. Tapley doesn't care. He's not going to do anything. I go up and tell him that there's somebody out there and he goes, well, get rid of him. So, I mean, there's not any help from the landlords on this. It's got to come from the city to keep them out of there. So I appreciate the fact that the church wants to do this. I'm glad that he has the love for the people, but as was said before, the seniors can use this help, and Lord knows we can use it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Ron Wood.
Good evening. My name is Ron Wood, and I lived in Sun City for 6 years. I live across the street from the shopping center. I walk about 6 miles a day, make several trips to the shopping center. You can't believe what I see. Sunday morning, a guy passed out drunk laying beside Stater Brothers. I went over to give him a paper. Folks, we've done our civic duty here. We have 45 registered sex offender child molesters here in Sun City. We're the dumping ground for everything. We don't need this.
Thanks, sir. Next speaker, please.
Katie Manier.
Good evening. Hemet was recipient to kickbacks and grant money allowing felons in their city because they had the courthouse. Menifee is now allowing more and more halfway houses. I have asked for the count of such houses, and I'm told the city doesn't have these numbers, as they are state facilities. They're state facilities, all right, and they're paying a lot of money for those people to be in those homes. Where's that money going? Is it going to the city coffers? These houses are here so the city can obtain the grants and kickbacks to build a courthouse and bring in more criminal elements like Hemet did. The crime in Hemet is horrible, and we're seeing it here. This is being done because we have a city manager that has no idea how to run a city but to keep adding taxes on all new houses being built. No wonder all the projects are being approved without any thought as to where services are coming from and where water's coming from and all the things that people need. Scott, you got information from a DAR chairman for homeless vets. Did you receive such an email telling that March Air Reserve Base provides food, shelter, and job opportunities for homeless vets? And we have them begging on the streets here saying, I'm a homeless vet, give me whatever you can give me. There's no reason for people begging on the street and not being directed or taken to march. Are we trying to get the numbers up so the courthouse can go in for the parolees? We are inviting crime into this city. Why aren't we enforcing the vagrant law? We have elderly citizens that are afraid to live in their own homes. I'm out and about and go to estate sales and different things, and I've heard over and over and over again how afraid people are. We have people breaking into homes that are being remodeled. They're stealing the tools of the work people trying to make a living, and they're having their products stolen, their tools, their work equipment. People are watching and casing the joint. They're afraid of the people that ride the city on their bicycles and observe everything that goes on. We need honest people running this city, not a felon, not a mayor that couldn't even afford his own home and now lives in a developer's house, and a city manager that is inept and doesn't have the qualifications to run a city.
Next speaker, please.
Sharon Stone.
Hello. I have a short note from a neighbor that couldn't come, and she really wanted to.
Ms. Stone, please
Yes.
speak into the mic.
Okay.
More, please.
I wanted to just read a short note from a neighbor that wanted to be here, but she's sick, so she couldn't be here, and I agree with her. She said, I had every intention of attending this meeting, but did not want to share my germs with everyone. She's coming down with something. She says, I very strongly oppose opening a homeless shelter in the core. I do feel sorry for the homeless, but this is an age-restricted senior community, and I am sure that the pastor has good intentions, but not in Sun City. We have enough problems with panhandling and drugs, etc. We have many seniors that are frail and vulnerable. Let's not make it worse. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
William Wright.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, and fellow citizens. I'm following up on the issue of placing a motto on the City Hall. 2 meetings ago, it was proposed to put a motto on the City Hall without any objection from the council members, but also without any opportunity for citizens to respond to this. Then the mayor said he would instruct the city manager to proceed with the installation. Fortunately, this has not been done. 2 weeks later, at May 6th council meeting, I propose that the well-known and accepted American motto that ought to be used is out of many one in American English and e pluribus unum in Latin. This is the unifying motto of the United States of America, while the other is disruptive and divides our union and is surrounded by much controversy and criticism. Therefore, tonight I am requesting the council to hold off on this plan and to hold a well-advertised public hearing devoted entirely to this matter for proponents and opponents of the two mottos. I understand that Congress and President have passed a law making the one motto official and not the other, and that some courts have held this up. However, I feel all of this is a breach of the constitutional principle of separation of church and state, and that it threatens the union of the United States, and that it offends the principle of equal treatment before the law and government for every citizen. The issue has affected both me and my wife personally. We have suffered many sleepless hours over the past month, wearying waking hours, spent many hours doing research, reading, thinking, writing, and preparing and giving presentations to this council. It has been a costly diversion from my working hours and affected our income. By my speaking out for a fair consideration for all citizens on this important issue, we feel that we may become discriminated against by the city of Menifee, the council, staff, employees, and fellow citizens who don't understand the issue or take contrary and prejudiced points of view. Our attorney has advised us that in his opinion, the way this was passed in council 2 meetings ago was contrary to the Bacon Act and requires public discussion for important matters affecting the community. Therefore, I again request the city council to hold a well-advised open public hearing before making any decision for all citizens who wish to voice their opinion on this matter and how it will affect our city, personal lives, and rights. Thank you for your consideration and service to the public good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. Next speaker, please.
Douglas Gibson.
Good evening. I am Douglas Gibson. My wife Irma over here. We are the individuals that were burglarized as per the previous speaker in Sun City. During the investigation that took quite some time, it was found that 2 of the individuals that are now living at that church were in a way connected to this crime, as well as my other neighbors that are sitting behind me, their home also. I hear that they only allow 6 people at this present time to stay at this church. I have seen more than 6 at different times. And if that is the case, and you have 2 of them at this point out of 6 being connected to the burglaries and other breaking of the law in different forms. In fact, the 2, if any of you drove by today, they're standing on the freeway off-ramps. And if they're not there with their sign, please help, they're on the corner at 7:30 in the morning in Sun City Boulevard and McCall. There's 3 of them that come out of the church and do that. So I just am here to ask for your help in any way you can to prevent any type of homeless activity at that church whatsoever, or in the future in Sun City. And my hat's off to a lot of the individuals here because I really thought I was going to be the only one to show up here and talk on this matter, because it is a serious matter. And I hope all you members do take this seriously and hear our words. Because I'm really glad that my 92-year-old neighbor, who can't hear and at the time and was very frail, I'm glad they didn't break into her home in the middle of the night. She's sitting there by herself. So that's the only consolation to what's happened to us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gibson. Next speaker, please.
Ray Hawkins.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, councilmen, ladies and gentlemen. I guess I'm the first to speak the other way. I'm the moderator of the council of the Menifee United Church of Christ. And I want to go over a couple of things, and then I'll leave you with something else that came to mind listening to the opposition so far. Number one, we're not a homeless shelter. Everybody doesn't want a homeless shelter. We're not a homeless shelter. We provide a little bit of a residential assistance to the people that are homeless. If they come to us needing a place to sleep, we have outside sleeping. They can sleep in the Peace Garden. They can sleep on our patio. We also have inside sleeping. And I will ask a question. I'll deviate from my notes for a second. I'll ask a question. Which is better? To have a homeless person curl up in one of my meeting rooms or walk around the Cherry Hills Plaza all night long? We also offer financial assistance to have their clothes washed. If they have other personal items like blankets or sleeping items, we will give them enough money to go to the laundromat and get those clothes washed and get those things washed so that they don't stink. We have a pastor's discretionary fund. We've been given an anonymous gift to our pastor to be able to use as he sees fit. We have a pastor's food pantry. If a homeless person shows up and says, I'm hungry, we'll give them a sack of food. If they need some clothes, we have a clothing closet. They can pick items that they need. If the homeless have physical, medical, emotional problems, we're not equipped to help with those. The only thing we're able to help with is a place to sleep, maybe give you some food, and maybe help save your soul. But we can't help with those things. So we've posted all of the agencies in Riverside County that can help you with those things. And they're encouraged to look at that posting. We believe that our church is a sanctuary. We believe we're following the teachings of Jesus. He said, helping the least of us to attain a better life is the way we should go. We charge no money. City doesn't pay anything. It's all donations from our church. And I'll leave you with an anecdotal story. I used to go up to Boeing Company in Seattle from work. And while I was up there, I was there on a Friday one day, and my Boeing coworker said, Ray, you're here at the right time. The bus leaves tonight. And I didn't know what he was talking about. I said, what bus? Oh, he says, on the corner of such and such a street up there in Seattle, downtown, they pick up all the homeless.
Mr. Hawkins, that's your time.
Okay, we bus them down to Tacoma, and I'll leave you with that as an option.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Hopkins. Next speaker, please.
Richard Curry.
Hello, my name is Richard Curry. I am actually here to speak on behalf of UCC in Menifee. I was actually one of the first people to sleep there at the church. And I've lived in this community for 20 years. I was very successful, making $150,000 a year. I've owned 3 homes in the community. Last year, I ended up getting a medical condition that's not curable. I lost everything. And this church actually opened their arms to me and let me sleep inside because I had nowhere to go. I had nowhere. I was sleeping in a trench over by Valero. And I've been doing it for months. It started raining and I had nowhere else to go. And this church opened their arms to me and their doors. I started working with them. I started doing the sound for them, helping them. And now I'm not on the street anymore. I don't live there anymore. – They helped me to get back on my feet. And all I can say is they're doing a good thing by bringing people in to try and help them. And if, you know, anybody disagrees with that, well, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Curry. Next speaker, please.
Kirk Whittinger. Did I get that close? Okay, close is good.
Hello, Council. Hello, Mr. Mayor. My name is Kirk Widener, and I myself was homeless over a year and a half ago. And I came to the United Church of Christ and didn't ask for a place to stay, didn't ask for anything, but it was offered to me as I was homeless. I had nowhere to go. I was once a bail agent, had a lot of stuff in life, a house, car, the whole 9 yards. Fell upon some hard times and became homeless. And if it wasn't for the love of these people and the help that they gave me, I wouldn't be where I'm at today, which is a full-time employee at the church. And like we said, we're not running a homeless shelter. We offer assistance to people who are homeless. We don't condone any illegal use of any drugs or alcohol or anything of that matter. As a matter of fact, we kind of screen people who might come there and need a place to stay. They need to have an agenda, a plan, and if they have medical conditions, this is feeding back. If they have medical conditions which we're not able to address, then we refer them to other facilities and organizations that might be able to help them. All I can say at this point is that I don't know of anything that's happened or was said here tonight being traced back to the United Church of Christ. It's not a fact, and it's not true. We don't house criminals. We don't house thieves. And as far as I'm concerned, it's the most beautiful place. They've done everything to help me, and I'm forever grateful. And that's all I really want to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Widener. Next speaker, please.
Alan Seufert.
My name is Alan Seifert, and I've lived in Menifee now for a little over 2.5 years. And when we moved over here, we came into Sun City, and it's a beautiful place. But we've also found out that, you know, if this does go on, that there are problems here and there with it. There is a colony in Paris associated with his light church, which is called the Hacienda, and it is set up so it can rehabilitate people. It's associated with this church. Also, I feel that if this continues, that our homes will be devalued by the crimes that we have committed. I thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Siebert. Next speaker, please.
Ms. Miller.
Respect, please, for the speaker.
First of all, speakers need to not speak so close to the microphone because it's pegging and we can't hear your wonderful speech out there. So let's watch for that. If I get too emotional over these topics, I might be pegging also. So I am shocked that your public works director promotes to children visiting on tours that you are building more environmentally impacting, colossal, heavy carbon footprint building movie theaters over here. People come to me and ask me, what's going on? We don't like it. Menifee is the worst of all the cities you speak in. Movies today are of the most anti-spiritual, anti-higher human values of preventing wars and respecting human, animal, and vegetative life. They do none of these values. Movies are full of violence and substance abuse. Choose entertainment carefully. I recommend this movie, Forest Diversity. The first 14 minutes will be shown at the Temecula Independent Film Festival. And wouldn't you know it, I had something to do with it. Would you think? All right. So I'll give that to Ms. Bennett, and she can put that up in the office. I cannot speak for the other movies that will be at the festival. This movie is suitable for us all, just as suitable for us all is no more buildings constructed on planet Earth. We need our open space preserved for the services of greenhouse gas absorption and oxygen generation, because humans are accelerating the prophecy of a new heaven and a new earth and causing too much weather change and rising ocean waters in coastal cities. And some of us need to work on our sins over the years, and we're not quite ready for that presentation of judging our souls. So we must work to control our city councils from removing the natural and historic open spaces and hillsides and washes and floodplains that absorb the blessed rains. Everyone I know is complaining to me about Menifee looking like a bulldozer parking lot. I want to know where the water is going to come from for more homes at Marietta and Craig Street. For goodness sakes, it just looks terrible over there. I didn't come over here for 2 months, and now look at it. You got the school district building something here. You don't even try to suggest already built buildings. I mean, there's gigantic buildings all the way to Ontario that you can't put the school district in, or some other venue that you desperately think you need. I want to know where the water tank is that's supposed to be at the hotel across the street. Did the project quit? And if so, I want to make a movie of it. A small town said no to development. You did a great job. You took the water tank
Miller?
away and you
Ms.
gave
Miller?
it to the trees in Duluth.
That's your time.
$1 million movie. One word that you can value.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. Next speaker, please.
Tony LaPlante. Tony LaPlante.
Mr. LaPlante. Oh, sir. Thank you. How are you?
I'm one of the 3 people that they talked about that were broke into. And one was they broke into our car while it sat in the parking lot one night. And then 2 weeks later, they broke into the house when they realized we weren't home. And with the police and working with them, they were able to catch 2. And 2 that they caught were both living at the house, at the church. They were living right in the neighborhood. And they were saying that the way they do it is they just walk up and down the street and they knock at the front door. And I don't get around well. And I'm a vet. So when it happened, they broke into our house the one day I had an appointment at the vet's. If I'd have been home that day, I would have been in the house when they came in the house, because they came in through the back door. And that's just the kind of thing. My wife and I would have liked to have stayed in Sun City, but we just don't feel comfortable in Sun City anymore. So we're looking someplace else. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. LaPlante. Next speaker, please.
Ruth, is it Lolette?
Goulet.
Oh, Goulet. Sorry, Ruth.
Good evening, Council. Good evening. Hey, you guys, you done good work. I applaud you. I'm from Sun City. I've lived here almost 15 years now. I pay taxes, as do 4,762 owners in this core, just the core. And that is one of many of your senior communities here. We are now being told that our welfare is up for grabs because Jesus said we should feed the homeless. Well, first of all, I've been around this block a number of times now. I came out of LA, and they're not homeless. For a long time, they were coming in by bus, and we would watch them in the mornings show up just in time to have lunch at the pantry. because it's free there. But now they are, a lot of them, if they're not staying at the church, they're staying over at the motel. These are all people who get checks, Medicaid checks, Social Security checks. They are not homeless, but they have found a haven where they will be able to proceed doing what they don't want to talk about. They are dealing, they are doing drug trafficking, they are doing sexual problems, but if what happens normally in a place like this with homeless is they are not homeless, and they are not, this church is merely giving them an avenue during which to perform things which shouldn't be done. Otherwise, they would be in shelters. Come on, guys. We know what the program is. All of us do. We, as seniors, feel that the community and hopefully the city of Menifee need to give us more security than we have right now. I understand, yes, I believe county says they can have 6 beds. We have probably 150 buildings in the core, 3-bedroom homes that are now turned over to 2 beds in each room. The caregivers live in the garages, and this has become a business.
Ruth,
And
that's
it's
your
not
time.
just the church, it is other things. But please, take this under advisement.
Thank you, Ms. Goulet. Next speaker, please.
Reverend Bill Freeman.
Hold your applause. I was going to wear a white hat, but I thought that would be overkill. Yeah, I am Reverend Bill Freeman, the minister at Menifee United Church of Christ. Mr. Mayor and council and citizens.
Mike.
Citizens. I'm not sure how rumors start, but I could probably write a treatise now based on what I've seen tonight. We have 3 people who live with us at the present time. We've had as many as 6. 2 of our members have graduated from our residential assistance program. We don't have a homeless shelter. We have a residential assistance program. We have a couple of rooms in our fellowship hall that we've opened up to the homeless. None of our people have been arrested. None of our people have broken any laws that I know of. 2 of them are here tonight. I don't know what people are telling you, what the police are telling you about where these people live. I don't know sometimes who sleeps in our peace garden. Now, we do have some people who sleep in our peace garden, but we vet the people who stay in our fellowship hall, in our residential assistance program. And as I've said, we've had 2 people graduate from our residential assistance program. They have found jobs, and they have found other places to live. They stayed with us for a few months. They didn't break into anybody's home in Menifee or Sun City or any place. The 3 people who do stay with us patrol our grounds to keep people out. That, you know, we've had our air conditioners stolen, and we've had our water turned on. They patrol our grounds. They're like security. We check out the people who stay with us. This city has at least 12 homeless. They probably have more like 60. We house 3 of them right now. We could house maybe 9 total. What are we supposed to do? I mean, are the 60 people or so who are homeless in this town, are they supposed to sleep in the parking lot next to Rite Aid? Is that what we want? Or in their cars at Walmart? I know it's probably not good to play the J card, but we're doing this because of Jesus. Jesus said, as you do to the least of these who are my members of my family, you did it to me. I can't just turn people away. We're a church. We're not a social club. If we were a social club, yeah, I wouldn't house the homeless. We're a church. We're a Christian church. I'm a Christian minister. I'm serving Jesus the best that I can. I wish I could house all of those 60, but we do not have a homeless shelter. We have a residential assistance program. And I'm probably about out of time. If I'm not completely out of time, I'd like to reserve the bulk of my time for later after everybody's
You are
spoken.
out of time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Those are all the speakers under public comments.
Okay, next on the agenda.
What, can I say something, Mr.
Oh, I would, okay, yes, please, very brief. I would ask you to temper comments because this, none of this is on the agenda for this evening.
I'm aware of that, Mr. Mayor, and I'll make my comments short.
Thank you.
I've listened, I want to thank everybody for coming tonight on both, to represent both sides of the issue. This is very sensitive, emotional, but I really appreciate everybody being respectful to each other. We do have a Brown Act, as the mayor just mentioned to us, and this is not up for discussion tonight, but I can tell you at item 15 on future agenda items, I will be making a plea to the city council, hopefully a consensus, but at least one other council member to put this, have staff look into what's going on over at the church, and that plans or anything, what a residential assistance program is, and I will be asking to put that on the agenda with a recommendation from the staff. So if you want to stick around till the 15th, you can hear me make that presentation. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Melching, can we give him a second on that request for a future agenda item now? We don't have to wait till later on.
You certainly have the power to
Okay.
take that item out of order and just deal
I'll
with it
give
now.
Mr. August a second on that for staff to
I
look
would,
into.
then I would like to make just one additional comment, and let me give the people out there the reason why I would ask this comment. In asking the staff, I would like to ask them to include in the scope of their work any findings associated with and include any possible impacts on the Cherry Hills Plaza, the surrounding community, as well as the impacts on the Menifee Police Department. And I will, and that's really all I want to say right now. So I would ask for a consensus or a second from the council to put that on an agenda and the staff to do what I've asked you to do tonight.
You've got it, and but let's just for the sake of the workload, if you would give the city manager some flexibility as to when he brings that back.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Very good. All right. On to the consent agenda. We have a consent calendar before us tonight. Do we have a motion for approval of the consent calendar, Mr. Leesmeyer?
Mr. Mayor?
What did I miss?
Sorry, the council member comments.
Oh, I'm sorry. We have a bunch of reports to give. Councilmember Leesmeyer, my apologies.
No, you're fine. Go ahead. I was going for 10.
No, actually, on the, we do have council member reports on committee activities. No one wants to stay to hear what we've been doing lately in the community? Aye, okay.
Have we voted on the consent calendar yet, Mr. Mayor?
Not yet. I skipped the council member comments, sorry. I didn't mean to. So if you're departing the council chamber, please, I guess you're not going to stay for the wonderful, marvelous city manager report for the wonderful business that we're bringing into Menifee, but I guess you can watch it on tape. Are there any comments from the council on activities? Mr. Denver.
On Saturday, May 16th, Relay for Life was at 9 o'clock today. I didn't get to go to that, but I'm sure some here will speak on it. Menifee Arts Council had a showplace at the Countrywide Marketplace, 150 artists doing different things. It was beautiful. It was amazing, and I don't know how many thousand people in Menifee and other places came to it. Later in the day at 4 o'clock, the United Way food trucks activity over at the college, and it was also hugely attended. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Anybody else? Mr. Leesmeyer.
Yeah, I did actually attend the closing day ceremonies over at Wheatfield Park for the Little League. Great event, a lot of fun stuff going on over there. All the kids were having a real good time. Looking forward to another one next year.
Sweet, excellent. Anybody, Mr. Edgerton, are you still with us, sir?
Mr. Edgerton, are you with us?
Yes, I am. All right.
Council member reports, sir?
Sorry?
Do you have any council member reports?
No, I do not. Well,
just a matter of, it's a little foggy there. Hearing them, each council person is giving their report on what they've done, et cetera.
Yes. Item 9.
Okay.
Alrighty, no reports at this time?
Yes, I sound like a broken record, but it is gratifying when you're on the outside looking in. I've spent all my time reviewing the programs that we're involved with, and which forces me to take a closer look at staff's involvement. So each week, I become more and more impressed with the work that staff does and the positive work that they do. I know I have to do research to understand my responsibility as a councilor, but the enormous amount of research that staff does and does so well, it's something the public should be reminded of at all times, so that the public understands how valuable these staff members are to us, with starting at the head with Rob, who's the city manager. I just can't express my positive feelings about what I see. And of course, once again, I want to remind people that the committee I go to, I have other responsibilities I can't get there. So Councilman Greg August has covered those, and he's done an excellent job. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Edgerton. Mr. August, do you have anything from RTA or anything like that? Okay, thank you. I did, Mr. Denver, I had the opportunity to present a proclamation for the Relay for Life last Saturday, which was nice. I've done that for every year, but it held special significance for me this year. And also, I attended the International Conference of Shopping Centers just this week. And other than my attendance, I'll defer to the city manager on a report for that for the rest of us, because it was your show, not ours, and staff's. So,
On that note, I'll report out on that as well.
okay. When? Oh, yeah,
Right.
you attended.
I was there,
Yep.
too.
Oh, very good. All right. Let the record reflect that Mr. Leesmeyer attended ICSC as well. And with that being said, that concludes peers council-member reports, and I'll take a motion on the consent calendar, please. Mr. Leesmeyer?
Yeah, I just had a couple things I wanted to possibly pull, if I could.
Do you want to possibly pull them, or do you want to pull them for separate discussion?
Pull for separate discussion.
Items, please.
10.2 and 10.10.
10-1 here.
10.1 is pulled, 10.2 is pulled, and 10.10 is pulled for separate
10-1.
discussion.
The waiver?
10-10, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, to clarify, you meant 10.10, Mr. August? Okay, all right, very well. So we have 10.2 and 10.10. May I have a motion on the balance of the consent calendar?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
On the balance of the consent?
Yes.
Okay, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember August.
Aye.
Councilmember Leesmeyer.
Aye.
Councilmember Edgerton on the balance of the consent agenda.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Denver. And Mayor Mann.
Aye.
Thank you.
With respect to 10.2, Mr. Leesmeyer.
I just had a couple of questions, possibly for Mr. Foltz or Mr. Johnson, if you want to defer, however you. Two items on here that appear to be basically the same thing, in my opinion. If you can tell me why we're doing it twice, I'm not sure. DR Vector is doing NPDES inspection, and DMAX is doing WQMP inspection. Seems like all the qualifications to do those things are held by the same person. One person could do that. Why do we do it twice?
I'll defer to Jonathan Smith. I believe it's due to the enormous amount of work, but I'll defer to Mr. Smith.
That is correct. Due to our work volume, there's two separate pieces that need to be completed. One piece is the review of the water quality management plan, and we have a separate consultant that does that, and that's DMAX. Secondly, when it is put into place, it has to be inspected when it's under construction, and that's what Dennis Spector does.
Why wouldn't we have the person who does the plan design do the inspection for continuity purposes?
They're more expensive.
Okay.
It's a little more efficient doing it this way.
Okay. I'm just being mindful of the costs, and Mr. Johnson, you told me at one point that these costs are actually paid for by development. So I'm just looking, you know, if we're talking about being pro-business and pro-development, I just want to make sure that we're not, you know, punitively charging the development community for things that we could probably handle differently. So that's it for that. And then on
If we could take a motion on the warrant register, please.
Now, this would be just for item 10.2, okay?
So moved.
We have and a second by Mr. Leesmeyer. Roll call vote on the warrant register.
Roll call vote on item 10.2, the warrant register. Councilmember Edgerton.
Aye.
Councilmember August. Councilmember Leesmeyer.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Denver. Mayor Mann.
Aye.
Thank you.
Consent agenda item 10.10, Mr. Leesmeyer.
That was me.
On this
And it was Mr. Leesmeyer and Mr. August.
Okay.
On this one, it's very obvious that the construction contract they were the lowest bidder. We have a 10% contingency, which is standard. I understand that. But the management inspection and the consultant engineering compliance, is that something that we take on in-house? Is that something that this person is paying for? Where is that money coming from?
Mr. Smith, I'll defer. It's based on Davis-Bacon wage determination, I believe, right?
You're exactly right, City Manager. We have a consultant that is making sure that we file the necessary public documents that are required of the Department of Industrial Relations. So I don't have that ability yet in-house. I'm planning on it. It's good. It's taking training. So until I get my staff trained in that, we're using a consultant.
So when we budget for that consultant, how do we capture these figures if we don't know what they are? I mean, is this an aggregate cost? I mean, is this rolled into his contract, or do we need to amend that contract to bring this all clear? It just it's not adding up to me.
No, it's a separate contract with a consultant that performs this work for us. This is something that I did actually as a consultant before coming here, so I'm very familiar with it, and that's why I know it's necessary. I will let you know that a previous project that was done before I came was not done to this level, and we had to correct it. And as a result, I want to make sure that those same mistakes weren't made again.
Okay. I think I understand. I'm just not sure how we account for that.
Funding all comes out of the same account.
Okay.
Out of the 220 account. So if that's a combination of gas tax and Measure A, the portion of that is used for those consulting services to make sure that the labor compliance is completed properly.
Okay.
It's $6,000 that could go to paving the street, but we have to use it for labor compliance.
But when we budget for this project, we budget that number into the project already, so we
Correct.
already know that this number is going to be there.
Yes. It's a not to exceed 6,000.
Okay.
So it could be much less.
Okay. All right.
We're hoping.
Do you have a motion, Mr. Leesmeyer, or any other additional comment, Mr. August?
Just a quick comment, a question from one of my constituents out here, and I think the city manager can answer it post-haste on this. And the question would be, why is this contract subject to council approval? And if so, is it the process that we went through, that you went through in order to pick this consultant, why is that not made public?
Well, it is made public. You can see it in the staff report first. But secondly, if it was under my discretion to be able to sign it, there wouldn't be the transparency of asking the question in public and sharing the documentation and the reasons why. So the reason it's on consent is that it is a matter of how we do our business, and that's how it's set up through our municipal code and our purchasing guidelines. So that's why it's on the agenda and on consent.
And why did you pick this contractor over the others?
We did a formal RFP, and they were the lowest responsible bidder to the project.
Thank you. No further questions.
Mr. Edgerton, did you have a comment? I'm hearing some dialogue here.
Mr. Edgerton, did you have a comment on item 10.10, award bid to American Asphalt?
Oh,
Nope.
I'm sorry, did I come through there on the mic?
Yes,
Yes.
came through a little. We weren't sure if it meant you had a comment.
No.
Okay, you're good.
I'll motion to approve.
We have a motion by Mr. Leesmeyer. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Denver. All roll call vote, please, on the bid.
Thank you. Councilmember Leesmeyer.
Aye.
Councilmember August.
Aye.
Councilmember Edgerton.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Denver. Aye. Mayor Mann.
Aye.
Thank you.
We have two public hearings this evening. On agenda item 11.1, a public hearing for Community Facilities District 2015-2, maintenance services for track 32277, Menifee Heights LLC. Is there a staff report?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Members of council, this is an item that came before you previously. It included a Part B, which was a public services, public safety component, which has now been removed as per council request, and I'll throw it to Mr. Smith for a short, brief report. As you've seen this documentation before, it's the same exact documentation minus the public safety Part B component.
Thank you, City Manager, please. As the City Manager mentioned, this is the amended report that came before you on April 15th, and the amendment is that this CFD only includes the cost, collection of fees for the maintenance items that the developer has asked the city to maintain. So I will go through this fairly quickly. Please stop me if you have any questions. Again, this is Menifee Heights LLC. The property owner has requested the city to form a service community district, CFD, to pay for the costs of services to be provided by the CFD via the city. It's a 159-acre site with proposed development of 359 residential units and a 10-acre park. It's located at the southwest corner of Holland Road and Briggs Road. On April 15th, as I mentioned, Council adopted Resolution 15430, resolution of intention to form this CFD. The CFD has provisions to annex additional development in the future years. This is a map showing the location of the development, which I'm sure everybody's familiar with. The RLI, adopted on the 15th, called for a public hearing to be held on May 20th. Under the Melrose Act, the city must hold a public hearing. If the majority protest is not filed, the city may adopt the resolution. Today is the first reading of Ordinance 2015-173, levying special taxes effective the fiscal year 2015-2016. We have this second reading scheduled for June 3rd. First resolution, 15-440, is adoption of the proposed resolution 15440 would establish a CFD. Resolution 15-441, the adoption of this resolution declares the results of the special election. And then on to the ordinance 2015-173, which will levy the amounts approved with the CFD. Creating the CFD for the new development allows for the development to carry the cost for the maintenance and operation of the city facilities, such as lighting, landscaping, street sweeping, and maintenance of the parks and trails. These services are not currently being provided in this area. The estimated annual cost for these services is $293,823. Without other funding sources, the city would have to fund these services out of the general fund. 2015-2016 special tax rates for this proposed CFD is $819 per residential unit. All costs associated with forming the district have been borne by the developer. There's no fiscal impact to the city. Staff recommends the following actions. City Council initiate formation of the City of Menifee Community Facilities District number 2015-2 for maintenance services only by taking the following actions as described. A, hold a public hearing. B, adopt resolution 15-440 forming the CFD. C, hold the special tax election. D, adopt resolution 15441 declaring the results of the landowner election. Secondly, finally, adopting ordinance 2015-173 levying the taxes.
Introduction of.
Thank you, Ms. City Clerk. I do have our CFD consultant, Shane from Webb Associates, if you have additional questions.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Are there any questions from council to staff on this matter at this juncture? Hearing none, could you please, for the sake of public testimony, put the map back up of the CFD? I think it was slide 2 or 3, just for the sake of a visual aid. Thank you very much. If there are no questions from council to staff, I'm going to open the public hearing at time 8:08. Madam Clerk, was this item properly noticed?
Yes, sir.
Have we received any written testimony or written correspondence from anybody related to this item?
We have not, other than what is in your packet.
Thank you very kindly. We'll take public testimony at this time. Do we have any speakers on this item?
We do.
Please call the first speaker.
Ms. Miller.
Ms. Miller.
We can't keep up with your Tonka toy bulldozer pile out there. We just can't. You've got to give us a break. Where is this place? More houses? We have no water for this. We have a drought. And I don't have my right glasses on. Where is it? Give me some cross streets.
It's on the east side of the city, next to Briggs Road, next to Holland.
Oh, over where that main water leak is? You're not even keeping up what goes on in your city. There's a whole wetland over there because there's some spring coming out on Holland and it's Holland next to the school. Anyway, you need to do things that slow down. I've had to slow my life down. You need to slow your life down. Take care of your city. Nobody's making money off these cities and developments because you've got to hire more police, more fire, more this, more that, more street cleaning, more landscape artists. You've got to take out all grass. The school has so much grass and water so much. It's an outrage. And half of that grass around the school is yours. So we'd like to see that taken out and save the water. But the water districts are asking us to cut our water by 50% so that you can put in more houses that are efficient at 30%. We're not buying that. Our water bills have to go down, not up, because we are conserving. What you have to do is conserve by not building more buildings. So wherever this is, I mean, the horror of Marietta and Gregg Street. I nearly threw up when I saw all those houses. We can't keep up. Stop now. You're causing an uprising. You're causing rage. As Malcolm X said, when people get angry, change happens. You know, you won't be reelected. But like I said, these other cities, Riverside City's going broke because they're being sued day and night, and all the revenue that they get from these houses is eaten up because somebody slips and falls, has a wreck, robbed, whatever. So you're never going to get ahead. Never. So stop now and give us back our Sun City that used to be the elders' home. And they're complaining about people that are probably coming in from Santa Monica because they heard something was good here. So that's your problem, not this poor church who housed a few people that weren't even drug addicts or substance abusers. So we don't want this. I'll have to speak again. I can hardly keep up with this.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. Next speaker, please.
That's all the public speakers on this item, Your Honor.
Thank you. Do we have we received any written protest to this item?
No, Your Honor, we have not.
Are there any persons registered to vote in the territory of this particular district?
No, the Registrar of Voters has confirmed there are no registered voters there.
Have the owners of all the taxable property in the district consented to hold the special elections on this evening?
Yes, sir, they have.
Do you concur that the special election may be held this evening immediately following the public hearing?
Yes, sir, I do.
With that being said, I hereby close the public hearing at time 8:12. Do I have a motion to adopt resolution number 15-440 of the City Council of the City of Menifee, establishing CFD number 2015-2?
So moved.
May I have a second? We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Councilmember August?
Aye.
Councilmember Leesmeyer?
Aye.
Councilmember Edgerton?
Yeah, we just finished on, which item is in?
The first resolution of the public hearing, item 11.1, sir.
Yeah, that was for the community facilities district.
Yes, sir. That is correct.
Yeah, I'm supporting that.
All righty. I have an aye from Mr. Edgerton. Mayor Pro Tem Denver and Mayor Mann.
Aye.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, did you receive the official ballots and other election materials from the landowners who can cast their votes on behalf of the owners of all the property included in this CFD?
I did, Your Honor.
And I declare the election results therefore as ascertained by the canvass of the elected and returned ballots.
And that would be yes vote.
Thank you very kindly, Madam Clerk. Do I have a motion then on the resolution, to adopt resolution number 15-441 of the City Council of the City of Menifee, declaring the election results of this CFD? We have a motion by Mr. August. Is there a second? Second. Second by Mayor Pro Tem. Roll call vote.
Councilmember Edgerton on the second resolution of the CFD. How do you vote, sir?
The second resolution.
Yes, sir. Approving the results of the election from the developer. Resolution 15-441, declaring the election results, which were yes.
So the vote is in reference to stating that we're having election on a project that's
Yes.
out of the hands of the developer. What are you saying?
This is simply the vote on the election results of the developer who agrees to this CFD.
Correct.
Okay, and that's a yes vote?
Well, my vote is aye.
Okay, thank you. And Councilmember August? Councilmember Leesmeyer?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Denver? Mayor Mann?
Aye.
Thank you.
On to the ordinance. Madam Clerk, would you please read the full title of the ordinance before us tonight?
Yes, sir. Thank you for your patience with that. Ordinance number 2015-173, an ordinance levying special taxes to be collected during fiscal year 2015-16 to pay the annual cost of the maintenance and servicing of streetlights, parks, parkways, streets, roads, and open space, the operation and maintenance of storm drainage systems, a reserve fund for capital replacement, and administrative expenses with respect to the City of Menifee Community Facilities District 2015-2 maintenance services only.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there a motion to introduce?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Leesmeyer. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mayor Pro Tem. Roll call vote, please.
Thank you. On the vote for the introduction of ordinance 2015-173, Mr. Edgerton, your vote?
Aye.
Thank you. Councilmember August? Councilmember Leesmeyer?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Denver? Mayor Mann?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much. On to agenda item 11.2, another public hearing this evening to consider ordinance number 2015-171, amending the municipal code by adoption of a new chapter 9.54, land use and business registration. Mr. Johnson, do we have a staff report?
Yes, we do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. If I could recall your memory, a couple months ago we had a workshop after spending 9 to 10 months meeting with some representatives in the rural community, understanding that our home-based occupation program and the way that was the ordinance was written wasn't a one-size-fits-all. You recommended that staff's account of that rural business ordinance go to Planning Commission, and it's back before you tonight. And I would like to welcome back our city's community development consultant, Charles LeClaire, who will have the balance of the item.
Good evening, Mr. LeClaire. Welcome back.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and Council, the item before you tonight is Development Code Amendment number, it's on board, 2015-24, an amendment to the city's municipal code adopting ordinance number 215-171, enacting a new chapter 9.54, land use and business registration, to establish an orderly process through which pre-incorporation businesses and land use activities which are not compliant with current city regulations to receive a business license and progress towards full compliance with applicable city rules, regulations, and ordinances. As this item has been before the council in the past, the council is aware that you, the staff, the Planning Commission, and others have been working on this item for at least 18 months. That effort resulted in a public workshop before the City Council on January 26th of this year, at which point you initiated a code amendment that resulted in the material that's before you tonight. In your staff report, we give you a summary of the full narrative that constitutes this proposed code amendment. It starts out with the objective of the code amendment and goes to the qualifying businesses and land uses of the amendment, detailed in your report. It also provides to you that there are certain limitations and allowances if you take advantage of the items that are in this that are in this ordinance, such as if an existing business that doesn't comply with the requirements of the current development code registers that business within the first year of the effectiveness of this ordinance, then they have 10 years to change their activities or bring it into conformance. If an individual elects not to do that within that first year, then decides after that to register their business or their land use activity, they have 3 years in order to bring that activity or that business into conformance with city requirements. But at no time can it be beyond the 10-year life of the proposed ordinance. In addition to that, there are certain requirements of those businesses or land use activities, again as detailed within your staff report, that will make sure that those activities aren't detrimental or harmful to surrounding properties during the time frame that they're allowed to exist. The business registration is also subject to some other specific limitations, and hopefully I've got the right one, I do, on the board that identify that they're subject to not allowing, in a commercial activity, not allowing retail sales from their property. They're subject to the metal shipping container limitations that the council went through extensive effort to have established. There are certain limitations to storage, dealing with vehicles, a specific prohibition about vehicle dismantling, salvage, reclamation, or similar activities being prohibited, and so forth. An important part of the discussion that's gone up to this point is the idea of whether or not these land use activities or businesses could transfer from one individual to another individual. This code would allow that under specific circumstances, as long as the activity isn't ceased for more than 6 months. And the issue that had been raised as well is dealing with signage. Existing signs would be allowed to remain if they had a permit. Signs that were not in place before the incorporation of the city wouldn't be allowed to remain. With the exception, the Planning Commission made a recommendation to the council that certain language be added that would allow for a continuation of existing signs, even if they didn't have permits. In addition, an important issue about this ordinance is that businesses, through this mechanism, would be allowed to register their business, then obtain a city business license to make them, at least business-wise, legitimate. This ordinance proposes to have a fee for the initial application for that registration. In addition, this ordinance proposes to have an annual inspection and there's a fee associated in the ordinance with that proposed annual inspection. The Planning Commission made a recommendation that the council strike the annual inspection and therefore the fee associated with that annual inspection. As is required by all general plans, you must, required by all code amendments, you must find that it's consistent with the city's adopted general plan. The Planning Commission, looking at this ordinance, found that it was consistent with a large number of goals and policies of the adopted general plan. Staff provided to the Commission, and the Commission adopted in its resolution a summary statement that illustrates how this ordinance would comply with the goals and policies of the general plan. That material is also included in your ordinance. As is typical, all development code amendments must have an environmental review. This project has been looked at under the requirements of the California Environmental Act. Staff recommends, and the Planning Commission found, that this item should be considered exempt from further environmental review. Staff believes that this item, the enforcement of this item, would be, it's not determined yet how cost effective it would be or whether there would be costs associated with it. Depends on the direction that the council gives to code enforcement, but this gives a mechanism for businesses and other activities to come in line with the city. As a step in the development code review process, all such code amendments must go to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on April 22nd of this year, at which time they were informed that the staff is also working on a new chapter of the development code, which will eventually be presented to you. The reference is home occupation and home-based business chapter. That issue is going to resolve many of the nonconformities and inconsistencies that are now in place. The ones that are left over, hopefully this particular ordinance will address. So between the two, all the businesses in the town that have current problems should be resolved. With that, the Planning Commission unanimously voted to forward a recommendation to you to approve this code amendment, adopting this chapter with the two noted changes that I had commented on before, and I put on the screen, and it's not expected for you to be able to read from the screen, but it is in your staff report on page 9, where they're proposing, or they're recommending to you that you strike the portion of the ordinance dealing with annual inspection and the fee associated with it. And then on page 10 of the ordinance, 10 of the staff report, the additional language dealing with the review by the Planning Commission of existing signage that the property owners are unable to provide proof that they had permits for that sign prior to the city's incorporation. Now, staff and the Planning Commission recommend to you that you conduct a public hearing, find the code amendment exempt, that you introduce the ordinance number 2015-171, approving the adoption of a new Chapter 954, Land Use and Business Registration, to the Municipal Code, and schedule ordinance number 2015-171 for adoption on June 3rd of this year. Staff would like to point out that in your red folder that you have pages that illustrate two things: a typo that was provided, that was made and corrected, and secondly, within your staff report, it's referenced where it says that in the ordinance that a date will be inserted. The two pages that you have in your red folder, the dates are inserted so that it's clear that on July 3rd of this year, this ordinance would become effective. The one-year time frame within which people have the opportunity to come and register their use or their business is July 3rd of 2016, and the 10-year expiration of all of this is July 3rd of 2025. With that, I'll attempt to answer any questions you may have.
Council, do we have questions of Mr. Leclerc? Mr. Leesmeyer?
Several. In the beginning, you kind of touched on safeguards to ensure that the public health and welfare is generally taken care of through some process. What is that process? How are we checking to make sure that these are safe operations?
There's nothing special in this ordinance that calls for some kind of special review. What is anticipated is that when we do a normal business inspection, at that point in time, if we observe that there may be some kind of issues on that property, then either code enforcement or building and safety, the police department, the fire department would be notified, and they would go through a normal process of examining that property to correct whatever physical violation would be in place. This code then says that if you don't correct that situation, then we revoke your registration, and once the registration is revoked, then you're back to the position of you've got an activity that isn't consistent with the current requirements of the code.
Are the businesses outlined, are the businesses that this will encapsulate going to be CEQA exempt?
Yes.
How?
Because this ordinance allows them to be. We make the assumption that the activities are not detrimental to the community. If they were detrimental to the community, then other ordinances, other requirements, other rules would apply to them that illustrate how it environmentally would be harmful and therefore would need to be addressed. This ordinance, as simple narrative giving a pathway to obtain a business license, doesn't minimize or negate the requirement that they meet any other health and safety requirements. It identifies specifically that they have to conform to other requirements. They have to allow inspections and have to fulfill whatever corrections are necessary.
So through the ordinance, they don't have to go through an application process like anybody else coming into town that's new. They would just ride on the coattails of the ordinance and then become approved. Is that what you're saying?
They would indeed. There would be, that's what the $350 processing fee is for, to submit a request for a registration, which would trigger an inspection of the property to determine what's going on and to determine whether or not there are issues that would need to be addressed further by the city.
Okay. Correct me if I'm wrong, in the past when we've discussed this before, we talked about certain uses and what all this is going to be applicable to, and it will only be applicable to those that are already allowed in the land use description for that piece of property. So let's say if you've got an equipment storage yard on a residential piece of property, there's no way through this ordinance that would ever become a legal process or legal use, or does this allow them to become a legal use?
It doesn't allow them to become a legal use. It allows them a certain period of time to modify their activity so that it could fit under the underlying zoning's allowed uses, or to change those uses. They could apply for a development code amendment and change the allowed uses of the code, or move out. But no, it does not. Let's change that. Yes, it does allow businesses that, if they were established in the county as either under the county's registration or exempt from the county registration, county made a determination that they were acceptable to the underlying zoning designation, and we are just building on top of that.
Okay, so what were the thresholds again? 3 years, 10 years, if they come in, they don't come in?
Correct.
Say that again?
What you've got is within here, you've got 1 year that you can register your business or land use activity. If you do it within that 1 year, then you have until July 3rd of 2025 to change your business, bring it up to conformance, or move out.
It's the drop dead. So you get in here within a year, you've got 10 years to deal with it.
Correct. If you come in, say, 2 years from the effective date of this, in July of 2017, then you would have only 3 years to bring your activity or your business into conformance with the city's requirements. If you come in July of 2024, you still only have till July 3rd of 2025, just that 1 year, to get your act together.
So there is a sunset date regardless of when you come in?
Absolutely.
Okay.
July 3rd of 2025.
Okay, on the note of the striking the annual inspection, I generally get that. I mean, that's what code enforcement's for, right? So, but I'm curious what the discussion was amongst the commissioners, why they decided to strike the annual inspection.
The point was made, just as you said, code enforcement. If they're doing something wrong and we find out about it because a neighbor's going to complain because it's something that impacts them, or the city finds out by a variety of means, then code enforcement, whether this code is in effect or not, would go out there to investigate and pursue the situation. If there's not an annual review, then at any time code enforcement is involved. If there is an annual review, community development goes out there and says, we think there's a problem, we turn it over to code enforcement and they do an inspection and they go through the code enforcement process. So why create an issue for that property owner and a cost for that property owner for this annual inspection when we have mechanisms to deal with it anyway? In addition to that, there was the discussion about the new chapter that's going to be created, which eliminates a lot of these uses in the first place. And it gives a whole series of requirements that they would have to be subject to under that new chapter dealing with home occupations and home-based businesses.
Okay, last question. What is our power with the signage to get those signs down? The signs are up now. They were not approved. If they were not approved at the time of incorporation, what's our power to get those signs removed?
If they did not have a permit, then they're a structure that doesn't have a permit. It was considered an unsafe structure. And through code enforcement or through the building and safety department, those signs can be physically removed. The assumption is, with the discussion of adding language to allow the planning commission to look at individual signs, is that there are provisions within this chapter that say if a structure is unsafe, then it has to be dealt with immediately. If the city looks at a sign and says, well, it's a sign, it's not physically unsafe because it's got the right footings and it's got the right pipe and everything else, it's not unsafe, then the commission has the opportunity to say, well, it's been around for 6 years or 10 years, whatever the property owner can prove that it's been, then we'll allow it to stay for the lifetime of the registration.
Okay. That's it for now. Thank you.
Mr. August.
Yeah, real quick, Mr. Leclerc, I want to thank you for being so patient. This has been going on 18 months, and considering where we started, I don't know if there's anybody still alive out in the rural community, but I really want to thank the Planning Commission and your efforts. Now, we are talking probably around 200, I estimate around 200 business. How many of that 200 do you think will come in and say, I don't know what you're talking about, I never heard about this? And what was the general mood of the community members that came in and addressed the council and you? What was the general mood? Do you think the compromise is going to work and it's pretty much not going to be a big issue for at least a while?
From the individuals that have come to the city or contacted the city, I believe that they would be appreciative of this. That does not mean, however, that there are not individuals that are unaware of this or are aware of this and disagree with that. You may have speakers tonight that are in disagreement with what's presented to you tonight. It is not unusual for any ordinance, especially dealing with land uses, to have a great number of people that are not aware of what ordinances are. So I can't give you a all-encompassing statement as to the attitude of the community. For the individuals that we have contacted because they don't have a business license or because they wanted to get a renewal of their business license and we're now telling them, no, you can't because you've got these kind of problems, I believe a lot of those individuals have expressed their concern, and that is what resulted in the material that's in front of you tonight.
Thank you.
Mr. Denver, anything? Mr. Edgerton, do you have any questions for Mr. Leclerc?
Mr. Edgerton, do you have any questions for Mr. Leclerc on the business use, land use and business registration proposed ordinance, item 11.2? He does not, sir.
I have a couple. First of all, thank you for your effort. I want to echo, from your perspective and staff, this is the 7th year of incorporation, and before the city started incorporating, I'll never forget this, in 2008, the county started to try to enforce the rural businesses by issuing a bunch of citations. And from that point on to now, we're finally at a place where it would appear that we have a fair and equitable process to allow people who are not legally conformant to operate, and to give them a path to compliance and a path to continue to operate. From your decades of experience, do you feel that we have a fair process here, and do you feel that this is executable from a staff standpoint, and is it executable from an enforcement standpoint?
In 32 years of this field, and in 8 different cities, and dealing with many more cities than that, this is a very generous program. This is a mechanism that will allow a number of businesses enough time to, as they've expressed to staff and administration, to get their act together, to get the opportunity to make enough money to either correct the situations that they have and legitimize their site, or move to another site that's more advantageous, that's consistent with the rules. So yes, I believe this is an ordinance that is very generous. I believe it is something that's enforceable, and I believe that the community, many people in the community that we've already dealt with, would appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you for your honesty on that. With respect to the forthcoming development code on home businesses and home occupation, with this going in place first, and if there are any modifications to that down the road, is there going to be a mechanism to, how do I want to say, mitigate any potential challenges between the two ordinances? If the commission and the council should change a definition that may not necessarily be consistent with this, I guess is my question, will there be a way for us to mitigate that?
In the review of the new chapter, staff will point out if there's any potential conflicts and make a recommendation to you as to whether you change this chapter or the home occupation and home-based business chapter, so that you don't have that conflict. In addition, when staff is looking at the request for registration, we'll also look at that new chapter. Hopefully by then it will be in place, and then say, well, you don't need the registration now, you need just the business license under this criteria. And then that will solve the problem. Okay. The only circumstances I can see, you may have individuals that say, well, we have this home occupation or we have this home-based business. If we go with the new chapter, then I'm subject to this half dozen of rules. If I go with this chapter that you are considering tonight, then I've got 10 years to ignore that. Yeah. And so it's a catch-22 that you can't get out of.
But it sunsets in 2025 no matter what.
July 3rd, 2025, if you introduce it tonight and adopt it on July 3rd.
Okay, thank you.
Excuse me, June 3rd.
Okay.
And it's effective July 3rd.
Thank you. Mr. Leesmeyer.
Yeah, just real briefly, I see here in the fiscal impact area, it's outlined there's an intermediate cost to the city. What are we looking at? What are we looking at there?
Well, the intermediate cost is just having created this ordinance in the first place, okay. Having a business license inform people that the registration is something that's available, having code enforcement go through its efforts for those people that don't come in willingly to make the registration, the effort that we may have to go through to contact them and say, here's a mechanism the city put in place to solve your problem. Do you or don't you want to take advantage of it? And for those that choose not to, going through normal code enforcement efforts because they're in violation of the underlying zonings allowances.
So with regards, the mayor made a good point. Obviously, we've waited a long time for this. A lot of those residents and people out there have been waiting a long time. But there's another cost in there that I'm looking at is this ordinance going to basically pick up all the violations that are outstanding and throw them in the garbage, or is there like a correction fee associated with the outstanding, if there are outstanding violations, much like a tinted window ticket? Take the tint off your windows, you go pay $25 and you're clean. But if we're doing this ordinance, is that wiping the slate completely clean for all those people that have outstanding violations? I mean, what happened to those violations now?
I would assume, and I'd have to also get a response from the city attorney, that if it's a health and safety code related item, they would still have to fulfill and address that issue. If it's not, if it's an underlying citation for inconsistency with the requirements and the allowances of the underlying zone, then yes, that would be wiped out if they come in and register their business. That's the point of creating this chapter and allowing that activity to take place.
Mr. Melching?
Yeah, just to build on what Mr. Leclerc said, Section 9.54.030E says that no land use or business registration can be issued as long as there are outstanding city, county, state health and safety or environmental citations or be in violation of any current health and safety or environmental regulation. So.
Okay, great. That's what I was looking for, because the last thing I want to do is lose all that staff cost that we just, that we've been working so hard on trying to get people to be compliant, and we just throw it all away. So that makes sense.
An argument can also be made, cut your losses. Go to a point, cut your losses, and move on from there.
Well, I would agree. I don't want to get into discussion with you. I'd agree, but people have had a long time to become compliant, and they're still not doing it. So I don't know that we're going to get there anyway.
Well, this gives them apparently almost 16 and a half years from the day we incorporated.
Yes.
In a sense, for those who, for one reason or another, are either legal non-conforming use or not a legal conforming use. There's a path to compliance. There's a path to continue to operate. It looks like this ordinance gets us there.
And I'd like to make 2 points. One, there was rural mentioned a couple of times in your discussion. And this is a citywide, not just rural-oriented ordinance. In addition to that, and this code does reference it, if you are existing legal non-conforming, this code has no effect on you, because there is another chapter of the code, and there have been provisions in the law, both the county and the city, dealing with legally established but now non-conforming uses. Those don't change.
Provided they don't come in and substantially change their business footprint.
Absolutely.
That would impact the health and safety of the surrounding area or create a hazardous material issue or whatever.
Correct.
That would impact the environment or anything else like that. Then it changes the ballgame.
Correct.
Right? Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Leclerc? Thank you very, very much for an exceptionally thorough presentation, and thanks for taking our questions. It's been a long time coming. Thank you very much for all of your work, everybody, past and present. So with that, we're at the point now where we're going to open the public hearing at time 8:45. Madam Clerk, do we receive any correspondence on this particular item?
None that is not already included, sir.
Do we have any public speakers this evening?
We do,
Please call the first public testimony.
and the item was legally noticed.
Thank you very much.
First speaker, Ms. Miller.
It's only 3 minutes. Why are you complaining, for God's sake? Pre-existing permits for buildings or small businesses that may have been established in the county or Sun City before incorporation, before droughts, before no water is available for any more businesses coming in, even if you call it small business. What if it's heavy equipment operation? What if they're massive bulldozers? What if they leak diesel? And you're going to let them get out of this by not inspecting every year? We don't even want them. We don't want them. We will not need or want in today's drought. So the last California constitutional action that needs to happen is business, commercial, building, industrial complex not having to fulfill all environmental reviews. I mean, to put this much time and effort, 9 months into something, and it could be used by building a new building, calling it a small business. I mean, you're putting a lot of time in this, and we don't know why you would do this unless it's helping out development buddies. And basically, we want to know what is coming into Menifee that could be permitted under EIR radar. Could it be massive DC, distribution centers, shopping centers, or heavy equipment operations? I mean, you've got so much of that on the roads. They come out of the corner up here at that granite pit that needs to be closed. You know, we're not a massive resource pit here, extraction for minerals, and that needs to be closed if we're not going to be building a whole lot of activities, because we don't need the concrete, because we're going to have a massive moratorium on any more buildings. So, you know, we want to know what's going on here that you would put so much refined time and your staff's work on. It couldn't be just because you care about small businesses. I don't think so.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. Next speaker, please.
Casson Klein.
Mr. Klein.
Good evening. I think staff should be commended for the work they've done at the direction of the council. However, I think that direction, while certainly was noble with what you've tried to do, I've got some major concerns with it. I don't think it's fair and equitable. I don't think it's fair and equitable to those of us that come in and do development on the front end and the analysis provided or required under CEQA. So the question I have, while this ordinance may be exempt from CEQA, how are the businesses specifically that are covered, blanketed, exempt from CEQA? For instance, their traffic impacts or their water quality impacts. When are those analyses triggered? Is it 3 years? Is it 10 years? So specifically, if the city attorney could cite the chapter of CEQA which would grant a blanket exemption to the individual businesses, not the ordinance, but each individual business that's being considered. Also, when are the mitigation measures exacted? Is it going to be in 3 years, or is it going to be in 10 years? CEQA requires that new development mitigate their impacts when they come online or a certificate of occupancy. Where do we get those? You know, the Scott Road interchange is $20 million short, yet there are businesses operating in that area, and I would venture to say throughout the city, that contribute to those intersections, to a failing level of service, that can continue to operate under this ordinance without mitigating their impacts. Yet new businesses, which 3 of you and many staff just came from Las Vegas, trying to garner business to come in, that have to do it the legal way. So where is that fair and equitable? Again, I want to commend staff. I think they've done a great job. I've followed this throughout several months. I appreciate what the council's trying to do for those folks that have been here, but I disagree. I don't think it's fair and equitable, and I think that Mr. Leclerc's statement of being very generous actually is an understatement. So if the city attorney could please answer those questions, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Next speaker, please.
Those are all the speakers on this item.
Mr. Melching, do you have any retorts there?
I do, Mayor, thank you. Just by way of clarification, Mr. Leclerc was correct that there isn't any further CEQA clearance required with regard to the adoption of this ordinance. However, as you move forward with any project, anytime the city issues any new approval, the question has to be asked each time that action is taken, is that action subject to CEQA? The first answer to that question in this circumstance, given the process that is set up, is when an applicant comes in and asks for a rural business registration, is that a discretionary action? The process that's set up in this ordinance is a ministerial process. If the requirements are met, if the boxes can be checked without the exercise of discretion, the registration can be issued. And because it's a ministerial process, CEQA isn't triggered at that point in time. We can take some comfort in that fact because the ordinance requires that there be no change or expansion in the use. And because CEQA measures impacts by comparing baseline conditions, imagine conditions that exist today, against conditions that will exist after today, and measuring that change, and since the ordinance by definition won't allow any change to occur, we wouldn't expect an impact to occur even if CEQA were to be applied in this circumstance. But that's not the rest of the story. Because as we know, this ordinance sets up a process, and the process is defined over time to require that uses come into compliance with existing codes. And that will require discretionary approvals over time. That will require conditional use permits. It will require plot plans. It will require, depending on the nature of the use and the nature of the zone and the nature of the city's ultimate development of its, or ultimate approval of a development code, it's going to require discretionary approvals. And there will be a CEQA trigger at that point in time. I can't guarantee you for each property whether there's going to be a change in environmental conditions between the baseline, the before and the after condition, but I can guarantee you that that CEQA analysis will happen at that later point in time as a matter of state law. And I could provide a specific citation to a code provision in CEQA, but I think I've relied on about 15 just now. So, and I'd be happy if it's the council's pleasure to have a discussion with Mr. Klein offline at some point in time and walk him through that process. I'm sure, which I do not mean to be patronizing. I know that Mr. Klein is well aware of that process.
And we are aware that he is also aware, and I think it was just a matter of clarifying for him that there is going to be a mechanism to offset what appears to be an unfairness, but when there really is not, in my view. So with that being said, we have no other speakers. Is there any additional questions from the council at this point? If not, I'll close the public hearing at time 8:54. Council, discussion amongst ourselves. Mr. Leesmeyer?
I mean, I'll go on record to say that this is great. I mean, I am very pro-business. I want to see these businesses succeed. A lot of people are doing it the right way. But I will also go on record to say that I do have a burr in my butt for those properties down there off Scott Road and Bailey Park. They have major impacts to our infrastructure. So much that one of the residents down there, Bonnie, can't remember her last name, emails the city and says, there's a major pothole in the street out here. Somebody needs to fix it. So the city goes out and fixes a pothole on Bonnie Way or maybe Bailey Park. The pothole was a result of all the heavy trucks that are going up and down that street, that the street is not designed for handling all those trucks. So as Mr. Klein was saying, there are major impacts with some of those businesses down there, and I definitely want to see that area get cleaned up. Mr. Klein also got to the point with where I was headed with the CEQA issue, so I appreciate your insight there. I think it's great. I think we're there. I hope that we can hold people's feet to the fire and get this done. People need to get on board. It's time.
I do not disagree with those comments. Anything else, council? Hearing none, then we need to entertain a motion. We need to make a finding that the code amendment by way of development code amendment number 2014-024 is exempt from further environmental review with respect to this ordinance. Is there a motion to that effect?
Yes.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. August, a second by Mr. Denver. Roll call vote, please.
On the motion to find the code amendment by way of development code amendment DCA number 2015-24 exempt from further environmental review and authorize staff to file that notice of exemption. Council Member Edgerton, your vote on that?
In reference to a review of The
Fine.
mayor,
Finding the code amendment in item 11.2 on the public hearing regarding land use and business registration, finding the code amendment exempt from further environmental review.
for further discussion.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll second that.
All right, Councilmember August.
Aye.
Councilmember Leesmeyer. Mayor Pro Tem Denver. Mayor Mann.
Aye.
Thank
And
you.
City Clerk, on the introduction of ordinance number 2015-171, could you please read the title?
Thank you, sir, and it is on your agenda, introduce ordinance 2015-171, approving an amendment to the City of Menifee Municipal Code by adopting a new chapter, 9.54, Land Use and Business Registration, establishing a procedure to allow pre-incorporation businesses and land uses to receive a city business license and to come into compliance with certain current city rules and regulations, and schedule for a second reading and adoption on June 3rd, 2015.
As amended.
As amended, right. That is, thank you.
Is there a motion? Motion by Mr. Leesmeyer.
Second.
Second by Mr. Denver. Roll call vote on this, please.
Mr. Edgerton, on the vote to introduce the ordinance regarding the land use and business registration, what is your vote?
All right.
Aye. All right. Mr. August.
Aye.
Mr. Leesmeyer.
Aye.
And Mayor Pro Tem Denver. And Mayor Mann.
After nearly 7 years, a resounding aye.
Thank you, sir.
Good job, everybody, to get us to this point. Amazing, amazing effort by all hands. Using a Navy term there, sorry. On to discussion items, agenda item 12.1, a discussion and direction regarding ballot measure for a 4-year mayoral term and term limits. Mr. Johnson, do we have a staff report?
I'll be glad to do that. Thank
Madam
you.
Clerk, yes.
Your council asked us to return with a possible ballot measure for two purposes. The first is to allow for the voter to determine if a 4-year term for the mayor would be something they would like to see. And the second is a separate issue regarding the term limits of the mayor, if they would like to see a term limit in place. Tonight, staff is looking for direction from you so that we can return the appropriate resolutions and ordinances to you, and that would allow us to know exactly how you'd like those worded so that they would be placed on the ballot of the general municipal election in November of 2016. This is not about a special election.
Thank you very much. Discussion. Mr. Denver.
I kind of hope I know the answers to all this, but for the audience, maybe city manager or mayor, someone ought to go through why we have to do this. Why isn't there, some people think that there's term limits on the mayor already. Some don't understand why 2 years instead of 4 years. And maybe that a real short analysis might make it clear for everyone.
Absolutely happy to do it. In 2010, the voters put in place a mayor at large and 4 districts. In that vote, it was also determined that the term of the mayor would be 2 years, and the pay of the mayor was determined at that same time. Therefore, because that was a ballot measure put in place in 2010, taking effect in 2012, that means that it cannot be amended without going back to a vote of the people. In fact, on the same election, there was a term limits, but it was for council members. Now that there is an office of the mayor that is separate and completely unrelated to the council other than he sits on the council, that has to be handled separately. It cannot fall into that same term limit category, so this has to be dealt with on a separate measure.
And some say that that was just mishandwriting of the persons or persons who put that together. They meant to put term limits in, and council, they thought that the mayor would be considered a councilman. Some say that.
I certainly would not want to comment on what others say. I can only state the facts as I know them. It does not apply to the office of mayor, only to the office of council member.
So this is one way, if we were to give direction to staff to have a ballot measure for term limits, this would clarify that and perhaps actually reinforce the will and the intent of the voter at that election. Cleans up the language 4 years later.
It would clean up the language.
Mr. August?
Just a quick question. I'm a little confused, City Clerk, Madam City Clerk. Not too long ago, we amended, I believe, an ordinance on the mayor's pay.
No.
What did we do?
You amended an ordinance on the council members' pay, and you're able to do so under current law to amend that, but you cannot amend the mayor's pay except for the fact that you can make it 100 more, which they did. But you don't have the right to change the base on that except for that purpose. So that did happen so that the mayor would be allowed to have $100 more.
Okay, so we can amend some things, but there are other items that we can't amend. We have to go to a ballot measure.
This has to go to a ballot measure,
Okay.
as did the other, did it not?
Yes.
Yes, that was a ballot measure in 2014, so that has to go.
Which one was a ballot measure in 2014?
The $100 issue that you're referring to.
All right, okay, excuse me. Okay, thank you. I've just, so what are we going to vote on first?
I don't know where we want to go with this. I recall, Mr. Edgerton, I know you're on the phone still. We talked about this back in 2012, and then, not 2012, 2013, to put this back before the voters, and it, for whatever reason, it never, only the mayoral, tying the mayoral stipend to the government code to be consistent with the council members for the automatic increases over time, we tied that to the government code so that we wouldn't have to go back. And we chose at that time not to put a ballot measure up for the 4-year term. I think what would be prudent to do is if the will of the council is to explore this and put a ballot measure up, I absolutely think that we have to have a term limit measure on there. And I also think that we need to have a question on the ballot in terms of if the voters approve a 4-year term for the mayor's position, when does it become effective? Does it become effective immediately with the November 2016 cycle, or would it become effective later, such as maybe 2018? I think that would be offering the voters a choice in that. I think would be the prudent thing to do. So, I mean, that's just my thoughts, Mr. August.
I'm going to make some comments on what you just said in a second, Mr. Mayor. But are we going to make a decision on term limits first? Are these going to be handled separately or together?
My understanding, City Clerk, is that they would have to be, they're separate ballot questions.
That is
They're
correct.
separate ballot, they'll have a different letter and everything.
That is correct. They cannot be tied together. They're
Okay.
voting on a question, not questions.
So is anybody making a proposal for term limits to be put on the ballot?
Well, that's what we're asking you. Do
That's-
you want us to bring that back?
That's right. Who is?
Motion?
Well, I'll make a motion to bring it back, but does anybody have an idea what the term limits are going to be, or is that something that?
Oh, well, okay.
yes.
I think, since I was the one that actually suggested that we discuss this, the term limit piece of this is that the term limit of the mayor should be the same as the council members,
Okay.
which would be 2 4-year terms. Consecutive 4-year, and then if there's a break in the future, then they can come back and have another 2 4-year term run. If
Would
there's
that be a 2-year intervention in the, as this current one is?
yes,
2 4-year terms with a 2-year,
that is
before
exactly.
they can run again.
That's not possible.
But that's exactly how that's exactly how the term limit measure was worded by the author of the petition drive, was 2 4-year terms, term limit, with a 2, and you can come back and have more terms with an absence of 2 years. Whether that makes sense or not really doesn't matter. The trigger is a 2-year absence before you come back and can run for council again.
I understand your concerns on that because there could have been a 2-year split with a council member because of the way
Could have been.
terms are staggered. Would that work, Mr. City Attorney, with this situation?
It would work. It would not make sense, but it would work. And what I mean by that is the mayoral term would be 4 years long, and you'd have to skip one in order to take 2 off, but it wouldn't be 2 years, it would end up being 4 years.
Right.
So the language could say 2 years, and it would work.
Well,
Mr. Denver?
I don't, what about if the mayor ran for a council seat? Wouldn't that be allowed? And then if after 2 years, somehow, I'm not quite sure how that would work, but if 2 years the
It's all
term
vacancy.
came up for the mayor, or 6 years maybe be more practical, a 4-year and a 2-year, then they could run again. I think that it is possible.
You make a good point, Councilman Denver, and at this point, it's not clear what the intention of the council is with respect to the interface between the office of mayor and the office of council. You haven't said yet, for example, whether somebody who was formerly the mayor needed to wait any time before that person could run for council. You certainly, it's your prerogative, you could put that in this measure, but that
I want to say my position on this. I disagree with term limits in its entirety. There is no point in it. It takes a long time to learn how to do this job, and I think that we shouldn't have term limits at all. But I do not object to having everyone have the same restrictions, and not one of us have less restrictions than others. And so for that reason, I think that it would be, I would argue to have no term limits put on the ballot for any of us, but I don't believe there's a second for that. And so I would go along with, I'd go along with the equality issue as my second best position.
Mr. Leesmeyer?
Well, surprisingly, I would second that because, you know, it's been, you do learn a lot, right? And there's a lot to be said about continuity. It would be a shame to waste 8 years of somebody's life bringing them up to speed on how to do this the best way, only to have them not be able to run again. If the people don't want them, they're going to vote them out of office. That's the way it should work. If they're doing a good job, keep them around. I would second that. So I would even pose the question, do we want term limits?
Is that your motion, Mr. Denver?
If I get away with that, absolutely.
Well, you've got a second.
All right, so make that motion. That would be for council and, well, I guess we don't have to make a decision on the mayor at this point, do we? So just for the council, I guess.
Well, we need to clarify that.
Yeah, that's not what's on the agenda.
I clearly understand
In
that.
keeping with the Brown Act, you would want to tell me and you would want to tell staff, do you want to see term limits for the position of the mayor? And if so, what are they?
And your motion was?
I have no idea. My idea was to have no term limits involved in the city hierarchy at all. If we have to start with the concept of the mayor, then I so move. There already is no term limits for the position of mayor, so I don't know how making a motion.
You don't want to make a motion.
That's what I just said, or didn't say, or
Well,
should have said.
let me clarify here. Let me try to attempt. Right now, there are term limits in place for council members as put on the ballot by petition drive of over 6,500 petitioners. And it was passed. Pretty resounding victory. And so what's on the agenda tonight is not about the council members' positions. It's about the mayor's position. First, it's about the mayor's position. If I heard you correctly, you don't believe in term limits at all. So is your motion to not have term limits for the mayor in terms of putting it on a ballot?
Yes.
Okay. And there's a second. So do you have clarity in what the motion and the second is?
We're not going to touch it.
If I understand you, we're not going to return a ballot measure if this passes.
That is the
That
motion.
would deal with term limits for the position of mayor.
Okay, so we need a roll call vote on that.
Yes, sir. All right, let me make sure we have Mr. Edgerton up to speed. A motion has been made, Mr. Edgerton, that the council would not like to see term limits returned as one of the decisions to make for the upcoming election. So the vote is, if you want no term limits, then that would be a yes vote.
For the mayor.
I'm sorry, for the mayor's position. So if you want no term limits on the mayor's position, that would be a yes vote. If you want to see a measure returned that does offer term limits to the voter, that would be then a no vote on this. Did I make that clear?
Yeah, well, give me just a second, Kathy.
We're having trouble hearing you.
A yes vote says no term limit on the mayor.
Yes.
That is correct.
A no vote says term limits on the mayor.
That would be the measure you've asked us to return for your final vote. That is correct.
Well, I thought we were going to break it into two parts.
We are. This is part one.
Okay. So I still have the opportunity to vote for term limits if I vote no.
For the term of the mayor, we're still coming to that. This is only about term limits.
Okay. Vote no.
Okay, so you vote no on this?
Yes, I'm saying that we shouldn't take it up at this point.
You want to see this come back as an item to be considered for the ballot as term limits?
Right.
Oh, I understand. Okay, that's a no vote. Councilmember August?
Okay, I believe in term limits, so I would be voting no, correct?
That's my understanding, yes.
Thank you.
And Councilmember Leesmeyer?
Yeah. Aye.
That's a yes vote. And Mayor Pro Tem Denver? Yes. And Mayor Mann?
No.
That motion fails. The item would then, now I need a motion to explain to us, if you would like this returned with term limits, how you would like that worded, please.
Yeah.
Exactly like the council.
Consistent with the council districts. Yeah.
Consistent with council members.
Yep. 2 4-year terms, can return as mayor after a 2-year break.
Okay.
As uncommon sense as that sounds, with 4-year terms, that's how the voters approve the councilmanic districts, the councilmanic representation, 2 4-year terms max with a 2-year break. So would be the motion, is to make it consistent with the council member term limits.
Completely understood. Who's the maker of that motion?
Second. Are you making a motion?
I'm not making the motion.
Okay, I'll make the motion.
Okay.
And the second on that motion? Mr. Edgerton, do you want to second the motion to bring back term limits of 2 4-year terms with a 2-year break?
No, wait a minute. Second for what? To do what?
For the motion to return to you with a ballot measure that will allow for 2 4-year terms of the mayor with a 2-year break for term limits.
I'm supporting term limits.
Yes, that would be the case, then you're asking us to return that.
Yes.
All right, so you're seconding that motion?
Yes.
All righty, I'm going to call this vote now. Councilmember Leesmeyer,
Aye.
Councilmember August.
Aye.
Councilmember Edgerton.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Denver. No. And Mayor Mann.
Aye.
That motion carries. We will return that item to you as described.
On to the next one, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
Okay, I want to read a little brief statement here.
Sure.
Yeah. For everybody. Anyway, we're discussing 4-year mayor versus 2-year mayor, right, Mr. Mayor? Okay. I'm going to support, first of all, I like what you said. It was a very good idea to include the voters, because we are more than halfway through the election cycle, and to offer the voters the opportunity to either vote for a 4-year mayor immediately in 2016 or wait till 2018. I'm going to tend to favor that. So regarding what you said about that, I will support either motion that the council votes for in that. And I'd like, in addition, I've already said that. So anyway, the 2-year term in 2010 passed 56 to 45%. It gathered 11,329 votes. As you said, it was a petition gathering ballot initiative. I think, and I probably even voted for 2 years, I can't remember, but I was very, very involved in circulating that petition in 2010. So I think the 4-year term for mayor makes sense, and many individuals might now have changed their mind and prefer the directly elected mayor for 4 years rather than just 2. Being, and as I said before, Mr. Mayor, I agree with you on this, being that we are already well into the next election cycle already, I think it would be only fair to offer the voters a choice of 2016 or 2018. And a 4-year term, should a 4-year term pass. So I am going to vote to put that on the ballot, the 4-year term, as long as we have the option or the choice of 2016 and 2018.
Understand. And is that your motion?
Yes, sir.
Is that a motion? Okay. Mr. Denver has a comment before we, is there, you want to, okay, Mr. Denver.
I disagree. It seems to me that, help me understand, if we do it the way that you suggest, this is very complicated on the ballot. This is very, this is not simple to understand. And so there's that fact. Second is, you're putting off the decisions for the voters off for, it doesn't take effect in 16. They're 2-year terms, so the mayor has to run again in 18 and then 20, right? It makes the mayor have 2-year terms for 2 extra times. And I don't think that's right. I think that's unnecessary. And so I say, let's just have it take effect and be done with it.
May I say something?
Yeah.
I do not agree with you that it is confusing because it says, do you want this effective immediately or in 2018? Why is that confusing?
That's confusing because why would anybody in their right mind want to discuss whether it be effective in 16 or 18? What's the intellectual argument for that discussion?
Because we are already past the election cycle. We're less than 20 months away from this election.
If the mayor ran for, if the election in 16 would be, whoever won then would be a 4-year term. They wouldn't have to run again till 20. If you do it your way, it would, whoever runs for mayor in 16 has to run again in 18, then has to run again in 20 before you get the first 4-year term. So, am I wrong?
Let me, the dialogue has sparked a question that I didn't consider before, and I'd like to hear the city attorney. I mean, it is a hypothetical question, but it needs to be asked. If the 4-year term of mayor passes at the November 16 ballot, and the voters vote for it to not take effect until 2018, how does that get deconflicted? If the voters vote for a 4-year term, but yet it doesn't take effect until 2018, then that does cause a de facto 2-year term, even though the voters just approved a 4-year term. How do we deconflict that? Or can we?
It is deconflicted, because what would happen would be you would have an election in 2016, and the question with regard to the election of the mayor in 2016 would be, do you want to vote for the mayor for a 2-year term? Because that's the default question. If we do nothing, the next election will be for a 2-year term of mayor. And then the ballot question will be, do you want, beginning in 2018, to have mayoral terms that are 4 years long? And so the first election in 2016 will be for a 2-year, and if the ballot measure passes, the next election in 2018 will be for a 4-year, or if it doesn't pass, the next election in 2018 will be for a 2-year.
I'm not following you.
Okay.
If the ballot measure is written for the question of in the city of Menifee, shall the mayor at large be a 4-year term, yes or no? If it's yes, at the November 2016 election, and then they subsequently, on the second question, do you want it effective immediately, yes or no, or do you want it effective in 2018? The voters then just approved a 4-year term, but yet the mayor's only going to serve a 2-year term before it takes effect. See what I'm saying? It would be two. It would actually
It's
be
two ballot
2
measures.
Yeah.
I
know it's 2 ballot measures.
Right. No, well, I understand your question because that absolutely changes things a little bit,
Yeah.
for sure. And what it would be, by the way, I believe that we can work this out in the wording of the actual ballot measures.
Okay.
So and maybe that's the easiest way to answer the question. If the intent is to provide the electorate with a sort of a two-pronged choice. Prong one is, do you want 4-year terms of the mayor? And prong two is, when do you want those 4-year terms to begin? Do you want them to begin in 2016 or in 2018? We can write ballot measures. It'll take two separate ballot measures, but we can write 2 separate ballot measures to get to that square.
Okay. Thank you. That makes sense to me. I understand it.
Greg is proposing a 3-measure ballot. One is, you want a 4-year term. Second is, when do you want it to start? And 3 is term limits.
That's correct.
That's just very clumsy. I would rather see a 2-measure ballot, one a 4-year term for the mayor. Don't even mention it. It's going to start when you vote. And do you want term limits? Anyway, that's my opinion. Because there's no intellectual argument for making the mayor, if we think it's inappropriate, making that person run 2 more times for 2-year terms. Why do that? I don't agree with that.
I'm going to make, if it's okay with you, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to make the motion that I suggested.
Okay, can you restate the motion? City Clerk, Mr. August's motion, I believe, was to put a ballot measure on the November 2016 ballot for a 4-year question, 4-year mayoral question. Then with a second question, when does it become effective? Immediately or in 2018?
That is the way I understand you would like us to return a resolution and ordinance to be approved.
That's my motion.
Is there a second on that motion?
I will second.
We have a second by Mr. Leesmeyer. Call the question, please, Madam Clerk.
Okay, on the vote to place a ballot measure for a 4-year term for mayor with a choice on a separately worded issue, whether it's 2016 or 2018, calling the vote on that, Council Member Edgerton.
Aye.
Thank you. Council Member August.
Aye.
Thank you. Council Member Leesmeyer.
Because in the end, it is still the will of the people. Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Denver. And Mayor Mann.
Aye.
Thank you. That motion carries.
I believe that takes care of that particular business item. Is there any other discussion on that?
Do term limits?
We already did. We did.
That was the first one.
That was a 4-1. It was a U motion, and it was approved 4-1 to put it up. On to city attorney reports then. Hearing no other discussion on that item.
I have a brief report. I know that on the long-range items for future agenda discussion is this question regarding the fence on Highway 74. And I've been advised we want to bring that back. I understand that we're going to bring it back, and I'm just reporting that I will give a report on that, on my investigation into that, at the meeting of June 3rd.
Excellent. Great. Thank you, Mr. Melching. Mr. Johnson, city manager reports.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Just a quick report out from ICSC that I did attend as well. We had 5 members of our staff, Councilmember Leesmeyer and Mayor Mann. Without going into too deep of explanation, because 3 of our team members just got back into town around 5:30, around 6 o'clock. Ms. Woodruff came in around 3 or so and drove all the way up here. I'd like Mr. Wyman to give a report at the next council meeting so that we can really have a good determination. But the quick and easy discussion is we had about 30 set meetings with retail and commercial folks and some shopping center reconstruction companies. We had more than 100, easily more than 100 folks drop by our booth, hand us information to contact them about coming to Menifee. And I would say in the Cities of the World booth area that we were in, we were the most active booth. It was very nice to see a lot of folks talking about Menifee. They knew where we were, they knew what our projects were, and they were asking all kinds of questions about how to come in town. So in about 30 days, we'll have a pretty big announcement that we're pretty excited about, and I'll just leave you hanging on that one. But we'll make sure we do it around the budget approval time, so that before we go dark in July, we'll have that report out, which was pretty exciting. A big commitment for us in town. But I do have, actually, Robert Lennox has a community services update for you on some pretty exciting developments after council approval of the community services department.
Thank you, City Manager. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'll keep this very brief in the interest of time. Just 4 items to update you on. Personnel recruitment as a result of taking in-house operations for maintenance and programs. A quick update there. RFP for landscape and park maintenance, capital improvements, and special events and activities that are planned. Some things for your calendar, though, in the meantime. May 20th, the summer program enrollment starts, which was today, and I'll provide you with some quick stats on what that meant as of 12:01 a.m. This early morning. And then May 26th is the final meeting of the Youth Advisory Committee for the current year, which means they'll be wrapping up all our activities and regular meetings, and we'll be gearing up for the next class, which will be recruited in August to begin in September. And then June 10th, of course, is the last day of school, and summer will be kicked off with a number of programs that we are doing enrollments for right now. On the personnel recruitments, all the positions that were approved by council at a prior meeting were posted on May 7th, the city website, and also California Park Recreation Society job board, which is where a lot of the professionals in the industry go. Additionally, Valley-wide employees were invited to apply. And so here's the fruits of that posting to date. As you can see, many of these have not closed yet. We did close the office worker position with a cap, given that it's an entry-level one and there are so many interested parties. The part-time position continues to flow in, and as well as all the other positions as well. This represents quite a bit of, at very least, 10-20% of these applications are all professionals within the field. So we're looking for a good field of candidates to interview. Park landscape maintenance RFP. We did post a RFP for a contractor to assist department in-house operations with routine mowing, blowing, weed, and graffiti abatement, janitorial services, trash removal, and tree trimming with pest control. Those are pretty general and staple items for a contractor to assist with. In-house staff, though, on the other hand, will be doing inspections of those maintained areas, special projects, irrigation repair and control, call-out services, installations, project management, rental preparations for weekend use, and facility and equipment repair, turf, and special events support. As you can see the timeline below, our proposals for the RFP are due on June 3rd. We'll be bringing back to council on June 17th a recommendation for award to selected bidder, and then the work to commence on July 1. Capital improvement projects, there are several currently. The department is leading right now. Case Cenicero's exterior hardscape, which I will show you a few pictures of. That's under construction, and additionally, the exterior improvements, we're finalizing a contract right now. Those exterior ones are just for the landscaping in the area of the hardscaping that's being framed up right as we speak. The interior improvements, which are also CDBG funded, we have posted a bid for that, and again, we'll be returning to council on June 3rd with a recommendation for award. Sun City Boulevard median landscaping, staff is continuing to prepare the bid specifications for that work. And the sports park, MPF stands for multi-purpose field. We are renovating that currently and hope to open that up just in time for our ball field allocations, which will kick off again July 1st. Park furnishing replacements, again, we're getting inventory and pricing on all of those for a lot of our outdated furnishings within the park. So this would be benches, trash receptacles, shade structures, and a lot more. And then finally, if you haven't driven by yet, Spirit Park is heavily under construction by the developer Brookfield, and they have targeted a completion of October 2015, so right around the corner.
Question for you.
Sure.
This is just with respect to Spirit Park. I know Normandy runs east and west and runs into La Brea, but where the road goes from La Brea eastward into Spirit Park, is there a way for us to name that portion of the street something different, like maybe Hero Street or something like that? Is that something, if I could get maybe a second, is that something that the Parks Commission could explore?
I assume they could explore it, although I believe the Community Development Department may need to be involved as street naming. I'm not sure how far along it is to date. So
It's Normandy, but it seems to me that we can name our own streets. Mr. Johnson.
Are you considering a portion of Normandy being named that, or Berea between Normandy and Newport? Just Berea?
From Berea eastward into the park itself. It's a driveway.
Right. I wouldn't think,
Street, you know.
exactly. I think we can take care of that if there's consensus.
If I get a second for that, I think the Parks Commission, unless you guys want to do that now, what's appropriate? It's not on the agenda, so let's have the Parks Commission take a bite out of that and see if we can name it Hero Street. See if not, no big.
okay, not a problem.
Good idea.
And just some photos of the improvements before and afters. You may recall on Evans and Newport, both sides of the campus had a wall that kind of made it look more like a penitentiary than and less like a community gathering space. So we've removed that. Within the demo process, they have forming new sidewalks, and then, as I mentioned, the exterior landscaping will be the next phase of this. So this is the work in progress. More pictures of the wall that's come down and drive approaches that have been reformed and repoured to allow for a wider opening and easier access to the parking area, as well as ADA enhancements. Summer events, again for your calendar, Memorial Day celebration or ceremony is on May 25th at 11 a.m. at Wheatfield Park. The Father's Day campout is on June 20th through the 21st. This is, again, an annual citywide event we do. And Movies in the Park series does kick off on the 20th, and those are on Saturdays, and they begin at dusk, or approximately 7:30. As the summer wears on, though, that certainly gets a little later, since the sun is setting a little later. June 26th, Case Ceniceros Center and Community Services Department grand reopening. We want to invite the public out to come and tour the improvements to the building, to the parking, to the ADA, and also come and take a look at the new headquarters just adjacent to the senior center. And then finally, on June 27th, the Independence Day celebration with the parade and then fireworks, as well as the entertainment at Wheatfield Park.
Mr. Leesmeyer.
Yeah, you mentioned Spirit Park earlier. I don't see that on the radar here. Do we have an ETA of the completion of that park that we might be able to get on a calendar, given that July we're going dark? We've talked about some people going on vacation, things like that. So.
Yeah, Spirit Park, the developer has disclosed to us that they plan to be completed in October.
Oh, didn't see it. I'm sorry. Okay. Wow, what happened there?
I think that as I recall from meeting with them, they wanted a little more time for the plant material to establish. So they certainly could have done some things to speed it up, but it would have been at a higher cost.
So it's the same old grass, let the grass grow story.
Exactly.
Okay, great.
And then finally, our activities and classes. As I mentioned, we went live today with the ActiveNet system that had been set up actually about 12 months ago. Just in a single day of activity, we saw 70 registrations for summer activities, a total gross of $3,100 in revenue. Again, that's just one day. And primarily that's for our Trek summer camps, excursions, and preschool summer camp programs. There are obviously several more activities listed and more that are going to be added to our lineup as the weeks come forward. So we are anticipating quite a bit of interest.
That's great. I mean, I'm not jumping up and down about the money. That's excellent, but just the fact that there's that much interest that quickly, that's excellent.
And to sort of add to that, we've talked with the longtime staff over at Lazy Creek who typically hosts a lot of these activities. They've said in the past they've had waiting lines of folks who want to get signed up on day one. And in this case, the lines were almost gone because the majority of these people were doing it from the comfort of their home.
Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I just wanted to commend Robert. You know, he searched this out. It's worked in other communities, processed the ActiveNet, attempted to get our former contractual partner to use ActiveNet. They did not want to do that. So this is the fruits of our labor, and this is a direct relationship from council to staff to the community, and how we can make sure that there's more access. Robert and his staff can go online. They can look at who's signed up. They can get a list of how many people at what time and what cost. I mean, it's all right there in the system. And like you mentioned, I believe there's also an app they can do it on their mobile phone. You can sign up for any number of these courses online or with a mobile app, and it's really going to start revolutionizing some of the things that we do and clean up a lot of issues for us.
And another layer to this, it's hard to obviously make out on some of the images, but an added benefit of this system is that a lot of our sports user groups as well as private parties can log on and view availability of facilities at any time, so that before they walk in to submit their request for a permit. And that's very helpful if they're looking for fields or available picnic spaces for a birthday party on a weekend or something like that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lennox, for everything that you're doing for us here in this area. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you. No further comments.
Question for Mr. Johnson. One of the speakers out there made a comment tonight about assisted living facilities and in-home care, and some of those places having people living in the garage. Do we have an active record? Do we know that is to be true?
I don't believe we have an active record of who's living in whose garage. No, we do not. But there are facilities, assisted living facilities, that are managed by the state, that we would not get record of unless there's a complaint, and we would have code enforcement go out like the one that we had in Menifee Lakes and determine whether that's actually approved to the state or not, which we did. So they don't have to come to the city and get any type of a permit, if that's your question. And two, if it's a garage conversion, I'm not sure that we, I'm not going to say I'm not sure. We do not allow garage conversions. So they would have to come in to get a permit, which would be one of the few ways we would know about it. Then we could tell them they can't do it. So really, the reactive part of it is if folks are finding people living in garages, they should probably contact us and we can have code enforcement go out.
It would seem to me that we'd want to know where those homes are, right? I mean, am I wrong? Is there a reason we wouldn't want to know if somebody has is doing this type of in-home care at their home, where they might have 10 people? I mean, I've seen.
Well, again, yes. If it's unlicensed and not state regulated, then we would definitely want to know about it.
Even if it's state regulated, I mean, wouldn't we want to know? Would we not? I don't know. I'm just asking the question.
Well,
informationally,
let me bring this back in. This is not on the agenda.
Right.
So if we want to have a discussion about documenting in-home caregivers, licensed and unlicensed, let's put it on the agenda, because it's come up several times before, especially in the Sun City core area where there are issues. So if you would like to have a future staff report on what we can and can't do, I think you would probably have some support for that.
Yeah, I think that would be appropriate. Yeah, would anybody back me up on that? Greg's on board.
Didn't we have a town hall about this?
We did have a town.
We had a town hall, right?
120 people or so showed up. Yeah. We can bring a report back. Be glad to do that.
You had a town hall meeting?
120 people. Yep.
You didn't report.
About
You didn't report out on that.
About in-home care.
I didn't know you were going to.
We'll bring a report back.
I'll report it.
Okay.
Okay, there we go.
We'll share that information.
That's an agenda
I
item.
was keeping it a secret.
All right, that's what I figured. Okay.
All right. Good.
Excellent.
Mr. August.
Real quickly, for everybody that's left in the audience, on June 4th, Catholic Church, 10 to 12, Eastern Municipal Water District will be over there with a team to discuss the drought restrictions, how they may apply. to the people in Sun City, but it'll be, everybody's welcome from the whole city. They will, I did ask them to be able to bring some people over that might be able to help some seniors if they have any concerns with their water bills and how to read them. I've never read a water bill in my life until last weekend, and Kay and I sat there all weekend, and so now I know more than Eastern Municipal Water Dicks do about them. But Ms. Miller said tonight that there's a 50% reduction in outdoor water use, and according to Kay's and my calculations, it's not really going to be near that bad. Our water restrictions, I believe, probably won't affect very many people in the core at all. But don't hold me to that, okay? So please come out and ask questions, tell your people to come out. So I think it'll be formative. Eastern Municipal Water will tell you we don't have any water, and they hate Northern California, and it's a real good story, and I'm becoming a Dodger fan over a Giant fan now because of all of it. So please come out.
There's an El Nino developing, so maybe that'll be some good news.
10 to 12 on the 4th of June, and I'm going to call you because you're the refreshment person, so I'll get your word.
Mr. Denver.
I asked for commercial container ordinance information brought to us. I don't see it. I don't see it anywhere. Do I need to get a second or something?
I do recall you asking for it. I believe I left it off the agenda. I
got it.
apologize. It will go on.
Second thing is that 112 years ago, we did a sign ordinance, and I brought that up a couple of times too, and it never got off the ground. The chamber was put in charge of coming up with a, come up with a program on it, and they did. It was written up and it was handed to the city, and it never went anywhere. Could somebody please do the sign ordinance?
Councilman Denver, if I can be a little bit helpful on that. City staff forwarded to me the Chamber of Commerce comments and a draft sign ordinance. We've worked through that. In fact, it happens that today my office delivered a draft of the sign ordinance back to staff for internal discussion, so that we can, work out comments and get ourselves into the public hearing process. Also, just parenthetically, I'll add that the United States Supreme Court is considering a case coming out of Arizona that involves sign regulations. We would expect that decision to be out by July of this year, and that once that decision comes out, it will influence almost undoubtedly the final form of that sign ordinance.
So I don't have to bring this up. It's prioritized.
It is.
And both of those are in our things to do list.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you.
Good. Excellent. Mr. Leesmeyer.
Yeah, some time ago, the County Board of Supervisors threw down a challenge to us, and I've never really been one to back down from a challenge. When Board Member Tavoloni told us, if you think you can create your own police department, go ahead. You think you can go buy a helicopter, go ahead and do it. Let me see if you can do it. I think it's time we start talking about that. We need to start discussing where we're going to go. The current model is unsustainable, and we need to make a decision. Whether it's a vote of the people, or if we go out to contract and we start discussing options, if it can be done, if it's feasible, feasibility study. I'd like to see something on the agenda where we can start talking about this.
Would you entertain just a minor modification to that in terms of, I don't disagree with you, and I don't think the city manager would disagree either, or any of us up here, but instead of bringing it right to the council, let's let, if you don't object, how about if we have the Public Safety Committee take a bite at the apple first, work with staff to explore some options, go in a certain direction, gather some information, and then bring it back in a organized manner rather than staff bearing the complete burden of it and bringing it back. Would you consider that?
Certainly, and if there was an opportunity for me to be involved somehow with the Public Safety Committee, I know that that's kind of an issue if we got 3 members, but I'm ready to tackle this. So, John, if you want to step down.
That's a crazy idea. You could almost do that for one time. I mean, there's really no reason. No, I couldn't just step down for one meeting or one set of things.
That's a standing committee appointed by the mayor and ratified by you all. If you wish to change it, you would need to have the mayor change it and ratify it.
In December,
I see.
typically.
Typically, yes, it is.
Question, but why can't he attend? It's a public meeting.
He can't participate.
Pardon me?
He can't participate.
Can't participate.
You didn't ask me to give up my seat.
If we create an animal control board or an animal shelter ad hoc committee, would you want to step down?
I'll do whatever you want, man. But, no, just input your things to me, and I'll see if I can impart them to the committee or who's ever there.
Well, I don't know that I can legally do that
That's a Brown
either.
Act violation.
That's
So let's bring this back in.
Yeah.
For now, I think it is time to start exploring it. If you don't object, if the city manager and the city attorney don't, if we could maybe, let's start off with the Public Safety Committee first with this item. Develop some concepts, pros and cons, courses of actions, and then we can get involved as a group, and maybe even in a large workshop format, because that is going to take more than one meeting.
Oh, you bet, you bet. It's going to be ugly, and it's not something I'm looking forward to, but we've had a lot of complaints, and even recently, you know, Lowe's in the morning, they do their morning powwow. They all talk about how things are going around the shops, and they've had a serious rise in their running. People, they come in there and they load up a cart after 8 o'clock. They load up a cart full of tools and they just push it out the door. Lowe's employees don't do anything about it. It's happening all the time. So we definitely need to tackle it. So that's fine. Public Safety Committee can tackle it, and we can start chewing on this.
We'll start there, use our existing committees, and we'll go from there.
Okay.
Anything else, Mr. Edgerton, do you have anything for final comments or future agenda requests?
Mr. Edgerton, do you have any future agenda requests?
Do I have any what?
Future agenda requests.
No, I do not.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have no agenda requests either. I just want to make a quick ICSC comment, and I can't wait for the report. But, you know, it seems like Menifee is now in their sweet spot with the economic development, specifically as it applies to ICSC and commercial development and other activity, because what we heard time and time again was you got a general plan, you got an economic development plan with incentives, and you got a capital improvement plan. Those are the things that we now see, and that's why we're starting to come and re-looking at Menifee. What was most gratifying, though, out of all those types of things, was all the appointments that Mr. Johnson talked about, and the drive-bys from other people. The most gratifying was when we were really, really busy, and we had like 3 clients working together at the same time while the city of Temecula and Lake Elsinore walked by. And they'll go, what are you guys doing? How are you guys doing this? So that's on you, the staff. That's on you guys and gals, and that's a really marvelous testimony to the effort that you are doing and have put together. So I, for one, thank you for that. Mr. Denver.
Last time I was at ICSC, which was, I think, the first time out, we had a big table and Menifee, and the standard comment of the developers and the realtors as they came by is, where's Menifee? What's Menifee? What is it? California? Is it like that? So things have changed.
Mr. Leesmeyer?
I would just echo your comments, Mr. Mayor. The staff did an excellent job. They were hustling, running all over the place, and it was great. It was really great, and it was quite funny to see the look on some of their faces when they walked by, and they didn't understand how we were doing it. So
it's pretty amazing.
Great. I think we might have changed our mind. We might have some competition next year.
Yeah.
So great job.
Hearing no other comment or discussion, this meeting is adjourned.